This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a beautiful, beautiful start to our day. It seems as though the clouds have lifted and there's a beautiful bit of light that is starting to creep in from the eastern side, which hopefully will mean much warmer and drier conditions for the duration of our morning. My name is Tristan. On camera I've got David this morning, and it is a very, very warm welcome from both of us to all of you. I hope that you are having a wonderful evening, day, wherever it may be. And remember that we are coming to you live from South Africa, which means, well, South Africa, yes, and not Kenya this morning. No, Kenya, Steve is busy going to have a bit of a nap, I think. But anyway, we are in South Africa, and that means that you can interact with all of us. And you can do that on Twitter, on #SafariLive, or at FC on the YouTube chat. And remember, try and keep it as relevant as possible to what you're seeing on screen, and we'll hopefully be able to get through lots and lots of questions, and hopefully it'll be a busy morning. Now, the plan is for the morning, there's been a sound of the lions booming and roaring all over the place. Sounds like it might just be north of us, not quite sure, so Brent has gone off to go and look for that. I'm in two minds as to where I want to go, but I think I'm going to go check around Treehouse and Twin Dam, see if I can find any sign of Hasana. It's been well over a week since I last saw him, so I'm going to try and see if I can go and find him, and then we'll just kind of see what else the morning brings. After a bit of rain yesterday, maybe there's some interesting things out and about, maybe some tortoises, land snails, and all of those kind of things. So that's what we're going to be looking for. Hopefully, like I say, it will be a good morning. James Hendry will also be out later when he joins us on Bushwalk. It's a little dark now though, so we'll only see him a little bit later on. Right, now I said Brent was out as well, and he was on the northern boundary looking for any signs of the lions, and so let's send you across to him so he can say good morning to all of you.
Well, good morning. You can see there's a wonderfully pinkish sky to the east of us, and some fast moving clouds riding the winds as the wind pushes all that fluffy weather from yesterday away. Now, we think the lions that we heard roaring from camp are close to here somewhere, but I think they might still be in the north. But good morning, my name is Brent Leo Smith, and I have Sébastien from Gabon on the vehicle with me, and we're hoping to bring you some big cats this morning. As Tristan has already said, #SafariLive if you want to get your questions through to us, or you can just pop your question on the YouTube feed. Now, at the moment, we've just got a bit of dawn chorus going, Franklin's. I heard a white-browed scrub robin a little earlier. Grey, go away, bird. But no roar of the lion just yet. If we hear them and they're still inside Buffelshoek, we will head down to the last area of the Nkuhumas, see if we can find any tracks. Nostrich says a Janet or a serval this morning. Well, we'll certainly try. Can't guarantee anything. Nothing is guaranteed out in the African bush. We can just put ourselves in the best position to possibly find them. Now, serval we see very infrequently here. The first serval I saw when I started at SafariLive was in the jaws of a leopard. Shadow killed one. I've seen a few since then, and who knows, maybe this morning is our lucky day. It is the right time of the year to see them, when it's dry and the bush is quite sparse, so you do have more opportunities to spot them. Genets, nocturnal, so I mean, we sometimes find where they're sleeping, but I think maybe Janet this evening on the sunset safari. Lions are not cooperating at the moment, but the best way to find lions at this time in the morning, especially when they're vocalizing, is to sit and listen and pinpoint their location like that. Yeah, well, I'm going to sit here for a little bit longer, listen to the beautiful sounds of the African dawn. In the meantime, let's go see where Tristan is and what he's looking for.
Well, so far, I mean, we haven't gotten very far, to be honest. So we've only done about 100 meters since we last saw you, so not very far at all. But we have a report, I believe, from all of you that Hosana crossed the dam wall a short while ago. Now, a short while ago, it's difficult to know exactly how long. Has anybody got some time as to when he crossed that dam wall and which direction he was heading? Couple of hours. Okay. All right, well, yes, I understand over the dam wall, but did he go over the dam wall south? Did he go over the dam wall to the east? Did he go over the dam wall to the west or to the north? Was he moving towards central? Was he moving towards Mvubu, or was he going down the Muwati? Okay. Into the drainage line. That's perfect. That's all I needed. Thank you very much. So hopefully we'll be able to find him somewhere around. If he's going into the drainage line, generally means he's going to be scratching around in the Muwati and doing his general thing, which is kind of just flushing small dikers and nyalas and those kind of things out of the drainage line. So I'm pretty sure that's where he is moving around. During the Gauntlet series, and when he first kind of arrived, he used to walk up and down there all the time. Now, we've got some impalas who are very relaxed. They don't in any way look like they have had to worry about Hosana being around. They're all moving about with actually quite a bit of pace for an impala. Generally, impalas are a bit slower moving than this at this stage of the morning. And I'm surprised that they're heading the way that they are into deep thicket, because it's still quite dingy and dark, and it would be perfect for a predator to be hunting at this time. So I'm a bit surprised that they are heading into the thicker stuff, but I suppose it's not really many open sections where we are at the moment anyway. So it's just half a dozen of, well, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other on either side of the road in terms of how dense it is. But let's then check. Maybe we'll get lucky if we check the Muwati. We might head down towards sort of Spaghetti Junction area, Chelapan, see if there's any sign of him coming out. There is, by the looks of things, tracks for buffalo being around, but it doesn't look as though they're that fresh. They look as though they're actually from yesterday, to be honest. We had a little bit of rain on top of them, so maybe they've moved off. I'm not sure. Was there any buffalo seen yesterday? Can't think. I've been on a walk for the last 2 days, and then before that I haven't really driven very much, so I was trying to think when the last herd of buffalo was in this area. No, there was no buffalo in. Interesting. Okay, well, we'll see what happens. Let's try and kind of bumble about for a bit and try and pick up some of the sort of signs. It'll be quite tricky to track this morning. The roads are going to be very hard, and from that rain yesterday, and it's not going to be easy to see tracks at all. We're also going to have a bit of difficult light to start with. It's got a bit of cloud cover, and so it's going to take a while until that sun gets up and we can actually see tracks very, very clearly. I'm going to try, like I say, down towards Chelapan, Spaghetti Junction. If there's nothing here, then we'll check Vulture's Nest, and then if there's nothing there, along Central, and then down into the Muwati itself. And hopefully by then we'll have found where Hosana has gone, and maybe found some tracks for him, or even him himself. That's the idea anyway. It's a bit tricky at the moment though. The light is not great, and so spotting Hosana in this light is not going to be easy unless he's very close to the road. It's hopefully though he's found himself a meal in the time since he was on the dam cam and is hoisted up into a tree. That would be the easiest. I mean, just find him perched in a branch. I think that would be the nicest way to find him this morning, but let's see. You never know. Right, now I'm going to keep moving towards the Muwati to keep trying to look for Hosana, but sounds like Brent, well, he hasn't moved anywhere and is still listening out for his lions.
We haven't moved. We're still sitting on the same spot on a ridge on our northern boundary. Of course, the lions are not being cooperative at the moment. And Sebastian and I were planning to stay for a few more minutes. Rihanna is wondering, do lions have a morning routine? Not really. It depends on the morning, really, Rihanna. They are normally quite vocal in the sort of hour or two before the sun is actually over the horizon, and that's why it's always good to listen. Also, as Tristan said, the light's not great for tracking, so rather than destroy tracks, sit, listen. You won't only hear lions, you might hear leopard as well, elephants, buffalo, before the real sounds of the day start taking over. So it's a very quiet time, and that's one of the reasons a lot of the big cats prefer to call at this time. It means their roars or voices will be heard for much, much further. But so far, Chitty Chatty Meg is wondering how much rain we got. Very little, maybe not even a millimeter, I think. Not much at all. Enough to settle the dust. But the lions are not being cooperative, so I think we're going to drive down the road a little bit. Now it's a bit more light. And we might stop on the next high ground to listen. This is where that mating pair was yesterday, we had in the morning, but they moved further into Buffels Hoek. We're right here on Sour Plum Road. That is Sour Plum Road. It goes into Buffels Hoek. So I don't think they moved far, and I think that's the roaring we heard was that Limpia voca male. Daniel says he's enjoying these new sunrise times. Me too. I actually love being out at this time of the morning. You can get into the right place at the right time. Okay. You can see these are the tracks from yesterday morning. The rain is on top of them. So we're looking for tracks on top of the rain. Morning, Rhonda. Rhonda would like to know how much rain we normally get in the wet season. Rhonda, we've had a dry couple of years, but it does go in cycles. You have wet cycles and dry cycles. But the average rainfall in this part of the world is around 300 to 350 millimeters of rain a year. So less than half of the average rainfall that you get in the Masai Mara. Now, you go a little bit further north from here, you actually get less rain. And almost all our rain falls over the summer months. We don't really have 4 seasons like you do in the northern hemisphere. We've basically got wet and hot and dry and cool. It doesn't really get too cold. Okay, well, I think we're going to go stop at the top of this next high ground, listen out for lions again. While we do that, let's send you back to Tristan, who's for our little chief.
Well, hopefully your lions will roar and make a lot of noise, Brent, and then we'll be able to all hear them, and we can help you to find your lions. In the meantime, though, we are still kind of bumbling about close to the banks of the Mulwati. We've crossed over at Spaghetti Junction. Doesn't look like Hosanna's been this far yet. And given that we did get inside information that it was an hour and 20, now it'll be a bit more now, but it was an hour and 22 minutes ago, a short while ago, that he was around the dam wall, that I don't think he would have gotten this far just yet. So we're still kind of having to work our way back up towards where he probably crossed, and then try and kind of work our way down from there and see if we can find him. Though we stopped a little bit now just with these Nyala, even though kind of you know, it's still fairly dingy and dark. You can see these guys are going to try and make sort of an effort now to try and find a bit of food. And what you'll notice with them is that they mostly are browsers, Nyala, but they've got their head down in the grass at the moment. And so I wonder if there's not a few little green shoots that have popped up through the soil overnight. You might find a few little forbs or small little trees that are hidden in the grass that these guys are actually just making or taking advantage of. You'll often find them after a bit of rain that there's a little bit of kind of food for even the browsers low down. Right, it sounds like Brent's got an interesting bird, so let's send you across quite quickly.
Well, a very interesting bird. This is the first time, I think, I have ever seen a Corey busted on Djuma. I remember one report of one on the Arrow through the airstrip once, and we drove all the way there, and it was gone. But this could be a new bird for the Corey busted. Very exciting. That is the world's heaviest flying bird. And they can weigh up to around 15 kilos. Now I wonder whether it's because of the dry weather that's causing them to move around a bit. They're generally found in slightly more arid areas than where we are. Now, you can tell me whether that's a male or a female. Hashtag SafariLive. Have we got a monster male or a monster lady? The average weight of a male, about 12.5 kilos, but they can get to up to 15 kilos, I think is the heaviest ever recorded. Octo is wondering how tall is the bird. It is about, a male stands at about 135 centimeters, the female at 112 centimeters. They've got a very, very varied diet. I mean, insects, they really love dung beetles, lizards, chameleons, snakes, and even carrion occasionally. They're also a proper omnivore, and they'll eat seeds, berries, bulbs, melons, and acacia gum off the acacia tree. Wow, Gizmo and Safari Girl, unfortunately, by saying you are wrong, I'm going to have to tell you it is indeed a male. It is a very big male. So how you tell that, you see that very extended crest and that big throat. Now, when he's trying to impress females, he can look quite impressive because he pops up his tail. We've seen them do it in the Mara quite a bit. But I'll just have a quick look before, just to show you what he looks like when he's trying to impress the ladies. So he puffs out his neck and lifts his tail like that, and he'll make a boom, 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 boom. A very strange call. Very cool though. Now, I'm trying to remember. I think one Corey busted was seen many, many moons ago, before my time. I think even possibly by Mark Weiner on Djuma, but this is definitely the first Corey busted I've ever seen on Djuma. Aunt Flabby is wondering, why does a Corey busted have a long neck? Well, almost all evolutionary adaptations are for two things. One for food and the other for mating. Now, in the Corey busted's case, it's most likely for mating, especially since I just showed you that picture. The longer the neck, the bigger the larger the amount of air that the male can push in to display to attract the females. White Lady Owen says this bird made her start her first ever bird list. Well, that's wonderful to hear. Well, now you've got it on both the Mara and the Djuma lists. Jennifer is wondering, are they aggressive? If you're a small snake, a chameleon, or a lizard, yes. But to each other, they generally don't fight as much as they'll display the males against each other. They've got a relatively successful breeding rate. Now, one of their biggest problems is lack of habitats, and that is one of the reasons that their numbers have dwindled over the last couple of years. Oh, it's going to fly. The world's heaviest flying bird. Off it goes. It confused the go-away birds because they thought it might be a big raptor. And it started not roaring, alarming. But speaking of things roaring, the lions still haven't roared. Well, that was a really nice start to the morning. Not something you see every day. Well, I mean, apart from my year and a bit in the Mara, I've driven around Djuma almost every day. And that is the first Corey bastard I've seen on Djuma. Okay. It's an all-boy affair this morning, so let's go say good morning to the last of our team who's out on safari. It is, of course, Commander Bond.
Good morning, everybody. We are walking at some speed off towards the western side of quarantine clearings. The clearing's just outside of camp, and we're doing that because we've heard a leopard calling over here, and we've also had wildebeest going which means they have actually seen the leopard. My name is James Henry, in case you're wondering. We've got Senzo on camera. Good morning, Senzo. He's nodding. That's good. It is alive. And of course, it is a very early start for us. We began drive today at 5 o'clock this morning. Goodness gracious, it was still dark. We're looking forward to some warmer weather. And please excuse your having to look at the back of me right now. I know that that's not ideal. But unfortunately, we do need to move quite quickly to see if we can get you a glimpse of this leopard. We've got Rex up front there, who is running game guarding, I suppose you'd call it for us today. Game scouting, tracking, protecting. And obviously he's very enthusiastic to find this leopard as well. Thank you very much for your warm welcomes back. I have been back a few days now, but I've only managed to do one drive. I'll tell you a bit about what else I've been doing in a little while. Hopefully after we've had a leopard sighting on foot. Remember, please send through your questions, hashtag SafariLive on Twitter, or at FC on the YouTube chat channel. I'm hoping it's going to warm up today. I think as Tristan said earlier, it is going to warm up. We think quite possibly up to about 38 degrees Celsius. Which is pushing 100 degrees Fahrenheit. There are some birds alarming here. Some babblers. You might just be able to hear them going quack, 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 quack. They don't really sound like that, of course. Now, what I suspect could be happening here is that Hukumuri, the plus minus 6-year-old sort of, what should we call him, the young buck of the west, could be back on Djuma because Tingana, the dominant Duke of Djuma, aged between 12 and 13, has been up north mating with an unknown female, and his absence here, the lack of his calling here, may have inspired Hukumuri to come and just mark his eastern boundary before heading back towards the west. We haven't seen much of Hukumuri around here, simply because Tingana has been so present, I think. Alright, we're going to spend a bit of time looking around here. We're going to walk at quite a speed. In the meantime, let's go back to Tristan.
Well, good luck, James. It's all very exciting when one hears a leopard's calling so early in the morning, particularly on that western side. It's always intriguing as to who it could be, and so hopefully James and Rexon will find with their culprit. We're going to try and kind of head in that area and give them a hand as we kind of go, but we're just in the Mulwati at the moment. I can't find any sign for Hosanna coming down this area, so I wonder if he's still not milling about just behind the dam wall. He might very well be. We know sometimes he likes to get himself into a good kind of spot and have a bit of a nap, and so I'm thinking that maybe, just maybe, he's not come this far yet, because I can't see any tracks for him, and definitely he's not kind of moved in the Mulwati, because there's a few antelope there around that are very kind of quiet, so he must be just sitting somewhere there and taking it very easy. So if we don't have any luck with helping James, we'll come back into this area. Brianna, just in terms of how do we know when to look down for tracks, just every now and then, particularly if I'm turning a corner, I'll just glance down, because it gives me a little bit more space to actually see whether or not an animal's walked. So particularly if I'm doing a sort of right turn. Always check at junctions, so always look down for tracks at a junction of a road. And then, I don't know, just if you see some sort of disturbance on the road itself. So if you see something that looks like there's a disturbance on the road, that it's not quite how the road should look, then always just kind of double check it. And so that's basically when I do look down. I mean, there's obviously certain times if you really are tracking very hard and you know that you're on tracks and then you lose them, then you kind of look a lot harder, particularly on the edges of the road, to try and see if that animal maybe just went straight across as opposed to just walking on the road. But sometimes it's just a complete kind of, what would the word be, a fluke basically. You kind of drive along and you're just out of the corner of your eye you see a track and you kind of spot it. But I mean, for the most part you try and kind of look at big pathways that cross the road, or junctions of roads, and then just anything that disturbs the road itself. But like I say, we'll try and kind of see if we can find any sign of Hosanna coming out this way. It doesn't seem like he has, so it could very well be just sitting in the Mulwati. Lots of hyena tracks back and forth, so maybe, just maybe, he's lying down somewhere. But like I said, we'll probably head and help James and Rex. Dan, you say you think you're learning these roads now. Well, very good. What road are we on right now? Let's see, let's test you. You need to give me a road name that I'm on right now. And what was the road I just passed as well? So Emma says she'll wait for a reply and then let me know. The problem is that it's going to be very easy to tell where I am in the next 2 seconds, because it will all become very obvious as to the whereabouts of my vehicle in a very short space of time. Hosanna, where are you, boy? So still no answer just yet, but like I said, it will become very obvious in the next 2 seconds, because you'll all be able to see exactly where I am and be actually able to kind of work it out given the view that you're about to get. Dory, sorry, Emma, can you repeat that for me? A dirt road. Dory, you have hit the nail on the head. Indeed, I am on a dirt road. It's very good that you've noticed that. I'm glad that you've picked up that I am on a dirt road. If I was not on a dirt road, it would be a big mistake, and I would probably be in a lot of trouble, because I'd be somewhere where I'm not supposed to be. But what we can have a look at quickly is this beautiful sunrise that is taking place. It's just poking out over the top of the clouds, and so while I kind of was on my dirt road, I noticed that there was a sun that was also rising in the east. Imagine that. Isn't that beautiful? I think so. So perfect way to start a morning. The colours are spectacular this morning. It's amazing also how fast that sun rises. It really is very, very quick, that's for sure. what's interesting is that, so I believe some of you have gotten it right. So ladybug and what was the other name there, Emma? Don't know why my comms are so poor this morning. I can't hear half of what Emma is actually saying to me, but I believe you guys got it right. Indeed, I was on Twin Dams Road. That is where I was driving, and I went past Wahlberg's Nest to go, came out of the Mawati onto Twin Dams and then past Wahlberg's Nest. Good, sun has risen. We're going to carry on. We're going to try and kind of head off, like I say, try and help James and Rex. They are adamant that the leopard is not far away, and so we're going to try and kind of head roughly in that area. And so while we kind of head off that side, let's send you back across to James.
So what we've done is we've come around to this area that we think the leopard could have come towards. Often they start calling. This is Shidulu or Hukumuri. Shidulu is a female that knocks about this area, about 5 years old. And they call around quarantine clearings because that seems to be around about their sort of eastern boundary. And then they head this way on towards this road that we're on now, which is Zoe's Road. We haven't had any tracks, so we've just headed here as fast as possible, and now we'll circle round and see if there aren't any tracks coming towards this area. I don't know what Rex is indicating there. He did a sort of pirouette. So we'll be listening to birds, alarm calling. Any further antelope shouting. And now we're going to see if we can find some tracks. Rex reckons maybe this animal's crossed over this road already. It depends on your fitness level and depends on how fast you can walk, I suppose. But I guess the boundary probably is a total of about 25 kilometers or so, which in miles is about 19 miles or so. So, however long it takes you to walk 19 miles, or 25 kilometers. If you were very fit, you could probably run it in just under 2 hours. If you were extremely unfit, it might take you, 7 hours, I suppose. Oh, thank you, Linda. It's very kind of you to say that you love my antelope sounds. I'm not sure that any antelope would agree with you, but I'm very pleased to enthrall you with my antelope sounds. The last time I saw Hukumuri, he was lying right here underneath this tree, and he was making territorial calls. Right, we have got 1 or 2 birds going quack, quack, the grey go-away birds. Let's head across here. There is a path that he often likes to follow on his way out back towards Arathusa, which is the reserve to the west of us. Amber, you can run in this area. You've just got to do it very carefully. People even bicycle in the bush, which I think is suicidal. But running in this area is possible. We often run. We run in groups. And as long as you're careful, you keep your eyes open, especially in the winter when the bush is quite clear, the leaves are on the ground, grass is low. It's relatively safe, much like walking. This is a very angry bird now. It's looking. It's very difficult to tell where it's looking. And there's a vehicle around here also helping us look. That's the grey go-away bird going quack, quack. I don't think we're far. No, 3-Red Rover's Hukumuri is most definitely a territorial male leopard. He is completely territorial. His territory extends from roughly where we're standing here. This is about his eastern boundary, all the way onto the eastern boundary of the reserve next to us called Arathusa. In fact, even beyond that, into a reserve called Elephant Plains. He could be slinking through the grass here anywhere. And of course we know that he's completely territorial by the fact that he's been seen mating frequently with at least 2 females. One of whom is Shudulu, who we see sometimes, who I've just mentioned. I see no tracks though. When he started calling, he was already quite far away from us. Let's just get onto this road over here, which will give us at least a bit of a view. Plenty of hyena tracks all over the place. Right, in the meantime, Tristan has driven just down Zoe's road there, and maybe he'll be lucky.
Well, hopefully, James, we'll try and have a look out and give you a hand. I suppose between the two of us, we should have a good chance, at least, of finding tracks, let alone the animals. So I'm hoping that between him and I, we will see some sort of sign of where this leopard moved. There's tracks for impalas running out of this block, so I wonder if maybe he's inside this block. Sometimes what happens with a leopard, if it gets seen, there'll be an alarm call and there'll be a bit of a shout, and then all of a sudden the leopard will sort of rasp and almost announce his presence, say, I am here, yes, you did see me. But what we do have is some ellies, so we don't have a leopard just yet, but we do have some ellies, and maybe it's worthwhile just sitting here with these ellies for a little bit and just kind of listening out, and maybe we'll get lucky and hear this leopard calling again. Could have also rasped because of the fact that there was ellies around, and maybe you went around them and got shouted at a little bit. Sometimes that is what happens. So we'll just kind of give it a bit of time. Nice to see the ellies again, and it's very close to where James and Rex are. So if they don't come up with anything with the leopard, they can always come and do an approach on these ellies. It looks like 2 young bulls that we've got at the moment. So maybe we're on the back end of a herd. This is not that far from where I had the ellies yesterday. So I had a nice grouping of ellies on foot yesterday, and so it might be that herd. And if it is, it's a very big herd, and which was very well spread out yesterday afternoon, and I'd imagine that they'll be quite spread out again this morning. But there's one that's trying to push over a tree. Hold on, David, let me get forward for you quickly. Oh, he's finishing now. The one over there is just basically obliterated an entire bush willow that was standing up nice and straight. It's now just been pushed completely flat, and there is now no more tree that is standing at all. I don't see any other signs of ellies. It looks like just the 2 young boys together. I know we have had 2 young boys moving about in the area, and so it must be them. I thought maybe that there was the rest of the herd around, but it doesn't seem like it. It seems like just these guys. Now, what are you doing? I'm just going to turn the tree over now. There's amazing strength that these guys have got. Pisces indeed, it is timber, and timber twice repeated. That poor tree has been pushed one way and now the other way, and it's all because what they're trying to do is get to the roots that are underneath those branches. There's with bush willows, you'll often find this with ellies, is that they break the tree itself to expose the root structure down below, and then they'll start to feed from there. It's not, even though we had a bit of rain yesterday, it wasn't a lot of rain, and also still hasn't taken effect, so there's no green grass yet, there's no green leaves, and the ellies therefore are still having to feed off roots and tubers. You can see lots of digging. It'll be a day for digging because the soil on the top will be a little bit softer, and so the ellies will take advantage of that and try and find all the roots that they've got in the actual and listen, how much force is in an ellie's trunk? I suppose a lot more than we can kind of, I don't know the exact number to it, but it's a lot. I mean, you see how an ellie is able to manipulate things, move things, pick things up. I mean, they obviously use their head a lot and their neck muscles. I mean, this poor tree has just been obliterated What are you doing? There's obviously something it wants underneath that soil that it's decided this tree is in its way. I mean, this is a young Ellie, and it's still able to, with absolute ease, move that tree around like it weighs nothing, which is quite amazing. But the force in the trunk, honestly, I'm not sure, to be honest with you, but I can imagine it would be a fair amount. It's ridiculous, the amount of power these guys have. I mean, you can imagine if you've got a really massive bull elephant, how much they can kind of lift and move. It's incredible to kind of watch them and the power that they can display from time to time. Still trying to get to something in there. I'm intrigued to see what is going to come out. It better be a golden nugget, the way that this guy is kind of digging and pushing that tree around. No, we got to reposition now. Yes, there's the feet are being used again and digging. You can see it almost looks like there's a bit of resistance, so maybe it's starting to get to the roots. Kathleen, what is that black spot by the Ellies? You mean the two birds sitting in the tree? Or is there... yes, the fork-tailed drongos that are sitting in the trees. So they are typically around near Ellies, or big herbivores. You often find them following elephants, buffalo, rhinos, all kinds of things really, and they'll go after insects that these guys disturb. So as they're walking through the grass, so maybe a little cricket will fly up or something will move, and they can then swoop down and grab it. So often see them bouncing about in between the Ellies, and it's a common kind of bird to see out here. There are lots and lots of them, very clever little birds as well. What are you doing? This Ellie is doing stretches and all. So guys, yes, Ellies do sleep on the ground. Generally at night you'll find some of them will lie down. Also the babies are probably more prone to doing it than the adults. The adults tend to try and kind of, stay standing if babies are sleeping, just so that they can protect them. Oh, there we go. You found what you wanted. It's a big root, isn't it? There we go. Well done. Finally, it's gotten this root out, and that apparently is a delicacy in the elephant world. So for some reason, all of that effort for that little piece of root that has now just been dropped on the floor, basically. It's crazy, isn't it? Seems like an awful lot to go through just for that little amount of food that it's actually getting out of it. Still trying to find more though, so obviously there's a big network of roots under there that he's after. And you can see when they're feeding off it, it's not exactly eating the root and kind of swallowing all of it. It's mostly just stripping that outer layer off of the root itself and trying to get that cambium and that all that nutrients that's being stored in the root. So you'll watch it kind of get pushed through, and you'll see it'll come out completely bare and stripped and pulverized almost, and then that's kind of what they're really after. They're not kind of after even the woody part of that root at all, but it's a nice big root, and you can see this guy has got some talent. He's kind of shoved it in between his tusk and his trunk while he feeds off one. It's almost like a kid when you're allowed to have sweets and you give it 40 sweets at once. They kind of all shove them in their pockets and kind of everywhere they can in order to kind of make sure that nobody else gets. So it's exactly kind of the same thing with this Ellie. Looks happy though, doesn't he? In here it is a bush willow that he is destroying. So one of the combretums. They are a very common tree that you see out here. Most of those trees you're actually seeing between us and him are for combretums and for bush willows. Right, now I'm going to kind of carry on and see what else we can find, whether or not there's tracks for this leopard coming out. I believe that this is the kind of area that we're supposed to be looking, and so let's try and figure out who exactly is calling. If it is Hukamuri, it would be quite nice to see him. I haven't seen Hukamuri since May, so it's been a very long time since I last saw him. He has not made many appearances at all, so try and just kind of figure out what's around. Maybe we get some tracks on the ground here. And while I do that, let's send you back across to James and see if he's had more luck than what we have.
Well, I think I would have told you if I'd had some luck by now, so no luck, I'm afraid. But such is the speed that we've been walking that I've had to take my jacket off. My earpiece is coming out. I've applied a very gorgeous piece of black tape to my ear, which is fantastic. We continue now through this block. We checked that road that I said we were going to. We found no sign. We have heard no further calling. So, you know, we'll just head along this path and see if we can find some track. We're not too far from where Tristan had those two little elephants, so we might see them as well. We'll keep very vigilant. And we must keep vigilant because, of course, there have been buffalo seen on this reserve of late, and we had a long time without buffalo, which made us slightly complacent, I think. And there are buffalo and elephant around. Jill, I think we'll pretty much start to see greening vegetation from today. It's going to be hot today. There's a level of moisture in the ground, probably about that much. And I think that's going to start causing a flush of green. So in about a week or so's time, I think you'll find that this place will be pretty changed. And if we have a decent dump of rain, then I think we're going to see an almost immediate transformation. It's always almost impossible to imagine what a place like this can look like after a little bit of rain and warmth. It transfers from what looks like a winterscape or almost apocalyptic state when we get to the really dry, hot part of the season, which is now, and then suddenly it turns. And all the combretum trees, which are just about all of these trees that you can see around us here, all these bush willows suddenly start to sprout their leaves, and mostly the grass turns green, which is very special. Hello, I Live Life. You're asking the question, is this a good live channel? No, it's dreadful. It's an absolutely appalling channel. You should tune out immediately because this is the worst live channel on YouTube. In fact, it's so bad that I'm astounded you've even found it. I'm being sarcastic, I Love Life. This is the best YouTube channel in the world. It's obviously the best live YouTube channel. You are on safari in Africa, on foot, looking for a leopard. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't imagine anything more pleasurable in the morning than tracking a leopard. And if you don't happen to be here with us, well, second best option is to watch it on YouTube and interact with us. So I hope that you last with us on this live channel. You'll notice we have in excess of 110,000 subscribers. So, I mean, they can't all be wrong, can they? Okay, we're just pointing ahead there. Rex is just pointing ahead. He's heard or seen something. It's not the leopard because he'd be a lot more excited. But, oh, there's some impala alarm calling. And an elephant. Well spotted. There, Senzo. And I think these are the two elephants that Tristan probably had. There's a termite mound ahead. Let's go towards there. We're now going to start talking very quietly. And we'll keep going up onto this termite mound. Very fresh dung. I know it's fresh, not because I've stuck my finger into it, but because I can see the elephant that just made it. He's just ghosting slowly through the bushes here. He's got his back turned to us. There's another one there. So these are the two young bulls, I think, that Tristan had earlier. Now the reason that we are moving towards them and not too worried is that they are young bulls, which means that even if they become aware of us, they will most likely just move away. They're also likely to be less threatened than, say, a cow and a calf or a herd. Very young. The one on the left is very young to be on his own. This is very special, everyone. The wind is not great for us. Now this one I'm pretty sure has picked us up. You can see he's kind of stopped feeding. Yeah, the wind is not good for us. You can see it's blowing not quite towards them, but it's coming across them. They're not affected at all. They're very relaxed. Let's sit on this termite mound. He started feeding again, the bigger one. So we're only about, I'm going to say about 50 meters from them, which is pretty close, and they're not reacting at all. Not sure how much attention they're paying. I would imagine that if they turned towards us and saw us, they'd probably move off, but I'm not sure that they're even aware of us. They should be now, because the wind is now blowing straight towards them, so let's see what happens. See if they pick up our smell. Alright, well, we're going to sit with these elephants. Apparently Brent is driving around.
Yes, hello zebras. We are in the area where the Nkuhumas disappeared yesterday. So we've got some impala, some zebra, a lone wildly beast, and a lone waterbuck. We can't see the waterbuck now. He's moved into the thickets. So it's quite apparent we're sitting on the edge of an almost pristine seep. Now, when I'm talking about seeps, I'm talking about where the water moves from the top of the crest of the hill down towards the start of a little river system. Now, in this part of Africa, they are very, very important, especially when it comes to winter food. If we're going to keep moving up to the right slightly, and you can see how there's a natural opening here, and you can just have a look. It's beautiful. So very important winter feeding grounds for buffalo, zebra, wildebeest, even impala and waterbuck and other animals. Now, because these areas, these natural seep lines, they have good quality grasses on them, and what happens, it attracts the predators. So what we're looking at here is duplex soils. Now, duplex, mainly two types of soils. So what you have here, let me just jump out. Oof. It's quite nippy this morning. I've got my bright orange hookah to keep my legs warm. So when I say, let me find a stick. Anyway, well, can you get me here, Seb? So you can actually see on this termite mound the darker coloration. So they've brought up darker colored soils, more clay-based soils from the ground. So what we've got on the seep line, which makes it really, really wonderful for the animals, and that's why they like to eat here, is basically you've got a layer of sand, quartz granite-based sand, generally between 0.5 meter and 1.5 meters deep, and underneath this layer of sand is a hard layer of clay. Well, it's not really hard, it gets wet, and what happens is when it rains, the water from the top of the hill, okay, across to James.
So we're still sitting here with our elephants, and we're going to do a little unscheduled Monday morning broadcast now. Good morning, everybody who's just joined us. We're sitting here on a Monday morning at work. Here, this is work for us, sitting with elephants on foot in the Greater Kruger National Park. Lovely to have you with us here. My name is James Henry, and you can ask us any questions you would like to. We've got Senzo on camera and two young elephant bulls about 40 to 50 meters away from us. They're just feeding quietly, as you can see the golden sunlight just touching his flanks. He's probably about 18 or 19 years old. He just left the herd. Probably aware of us, because the wind is blowing towards him and he has smelt us, but he's indicated no sense of displeasure at all. He seems to just be carrying on feeding, which is wonderful. Hang on a second. He's just having a look as he turns around that way to see that we're not a threat, which of course we are not. Now, if he was threatened at all, he would stop eating. Sassy, we could probably get a little bit closer, but not much closer now. And the reason is that there is no cover between us and him. And so were we to move any closer, he would almost certainly move away. He would feel threatened by us. We don't want that. We want him to feel completely comfortable with us on foot. And clearly he does, because he's carrying on eating. Sometimes elephants pretend to eat when they're feeling uncomfortable. They do what's known as displacement behavior, where they pretend to feed as they sort of check you out and decide whether or not they think you're a threat or not. Well, this chap doesn't see us as a threat. He's eating. Definitely aware of us. You saw him shift slowly to the right like that and look towards us, and that meant that he was just checking us out and making sure that we weren't doing anything silly. Danny, I'm afraid I missed your comment, so we'll just have that again. Oh, Danny, it makes you feel like you're right here. Well, that's the idea, really. It's so great to be able to bring this to you live. It's especially great as I think of my friends who live in city environments driving through the traffic on their way to work now. Here I am, Monday morning, sitting in the wilderness with possibly one of the world's most iconic animals, an African elephant. And the best part of it is that although he knows I'm sitting here, he is not reacting to us in a negative way at all. Starlight in the background, you can hear some arrow-marked babblers. And you can hear immediately why they're called babblers. They're going babble, 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 babble. And there's also a white-browed scrub robin going. Now, when we came into this area, we were hoping to find a leopard because we'd heard him calling. We saw some antelope alarm calling at him. And we heard him making a territorial rasp as he came into this area. But we haven't had any further sign. But what a pleasure to have just popped over to see these two elephants. Janine, it's not necessarily a question of us smelling worse or better on foot. Your question is, why would we smell worse on foot than in a vehicle? It is the scent of human being that makes animals out here afraid. Human being is the smell of predator to the animals out here, even something as big as an elephant, and it is that association with danger that makes them react to us. In a vehicle, of course, the human scent is very much masked by brake fluid and gasoline and engine oil and all those sorts of nasty smells that come off a vehicle that we just get very used to. And so the smell of human is very much masked by being on a vehicle. On foot, when they smell us, they just smell human being, as long with our detergents and fancy Calvin Klein smellies and that sort of thing, none of which I'm wearing at the moment. But they associate it much more with a threat than they do with the vehicle. This elephant, I suspect, though, has grown up in this area and has seen many people in vehicles and probably also on foot, because he's not reacting to us in a negative fashion at all. He must know that we're here. He's looked at us twice. He's turned his trunk towards us, so I'm pretty sure he knows we're here. They don't have great sight. It's not bad, but they don't have great sight. But even from that distance, with the sun shining straight onto me, I'm pretty sure that he'd be able to see us. Very special indeed. All right, for those of you who've just joined us, if you'd like to carry on, you just need to go to YouTube, type in SafariLive, and you'll find us there. We are live, 3 of us here in the Western Kruger National Park of South Africa, Djuma Private Game Reserve, 1 looking for leopards, 1 looking for lions, and we're going to sit here with these elephants for just a little bit longer. Alrighty, we're going to probably move off now. Let's head back to Brent, who is apparently still driving and searching.
Well, we've left that seep line and discovered where the Nkuhumas had a snooze last night. We're just trying to figure out which way they went. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to keep chatting about the soils I was telling you about. And as I was saying, I'll just finish it off quickly, the duplex soil. So you've got that layer of sand, of granite, quartz-based sand, and then that clay layer. So what happens is the water comes in and it sits at that clay layer, so it doesn't seep into the clay. The clay stops it from going down. So you get a high water content. So you get very good quality grasses there, and often it's too wet for a lot of the tree species to grow, and that's why you have those natural clearings, and they're very, very important parts of the ecosystem. Now we've got tracks going both directions, so I'm just trying to figure out which is the main direction the pride went. So they must have slept here and then they walked straight off the road, so there's no tracks further down. I'm just going to see if they went south or north. Generally, it looks like they might have gone off to the north. Okay. Well, we know where we've got to go now. We have to go north. It's getting a bit warmer, but still cold enough to have my shuka on. Hello, Jasper. Jasper wants to know, do I think, oh, I'm caught. I'm caught. What am I caught on? Myself. Will we see lions during the show? Well, I hope so, Jasper. We've at least got tracks, so that's a great start. We've got a direction, and it's a nice big pride of lions. So even though there was a bit of rain yesterday, which makes the tracking a bit more difficult because it compacts the soil, nice big pride of lions like this, hopefully I should be able to find if they haven't moved too far. So there's no tracks down here. They cut northeast into the block. There's another road that runs across that way, so we're going to go take that one. It is a beautiful morning. Hopefully we find the lions while they're still on the move. Actually just come from here, that seep line we were on. It seems the general direction of those tracks. Okay, while I try see where these lion tracks go, let's send you back to Tristan, who's still searching for the little chief.
Well, we are still looking. I'm just trying to get a message from Aubrey, but I didn't catch any of it because of the link that came in. Sorry, Orbs, I didn't get most of that. Can you just repeat for me, please? No. Okay, copy that. Thanks. Oops. So we were just in this area because there's been obviously tracks and audio of leopard, and there was squirrels and birds going absolutely crazy in here, and we kind of came in but can't find anything. So maybe it was something like a slender mongoose, or maybe an owl that came past or something, I don't know, but it just everything was shouting, making a lot of noise. So I'll try and just kind of, I thought we'll just go and have a little quick look in there, but we didn't find anything, unfortunately. The tracks of this leopard is all over the place. There's tracks going towards Gallagher Pan, there's tracks kind of coming off onto Quarantine going west, so, and there's tracks kind of going south of Quarantine. So it seems like a leopard's just kind of moving about quite a bit. Now we know that a leopard was seen or heard calling roughly in this area by Rexon, so we're just going to do Weirtele access northwards and just see, maybe we get lucky and he kind of came this way. I'm not sure, it's going to be a tough one. There's lots of hyena tracks going towards the den, so if we don't have any luck with this leopard, then we'll just pop in at the hyena den as well, because I'm yet to see those little ones, so it'd be nice to kind of go and have a little look at them. But let's just head off in this direction for now and see what's going on, and see if we can find any signs of this leopard appearing on this side, because Rex definitely said he heard a leopard somewhere close to where we are, and there's lots of kind of signs of leopard around, but no actual leopard itself. So we'll try and kind of have a little bit of a look and just see, maybe we get lucky. So Francois, there's quite a number of differences between leopard and hyena tracks. I'm just trying to see if I've got my book here that I can show you. Hello impalas, you guys all look very relaxed, not like you've seen a leopard. Have you seen a leopard? Leopard? No, no, no. Nobody's answering me this morning. They're saying they haven't seen anything. Alright, let me find hyena quickly in this book, and then I can show you what the differences are. We did just cover this last week on our Tracking Tuesday, Francis. So if you're interested in tracks, remember that we do Tracking Tuesday. So we'll post a photo on SafariLive Official on Instagram every Tuesday of a track, and you'll be able to then kind of work out what they are, and we go through why it is what it is, or why it isn't what it could be confused with. Anyway, this is spotted hyena. This is what we see here. You can see 1, 2 lobes. You'll notice that the shape of the toe has got these little banana kind of shapes on it. Very evident claws that you'll get at the front of it. It also tends, when they walk, to be a bit duck-footed. So this shows a straight foot, but generally their foot goes off at an angle like my fingers would be, and that's how they kind of walk when they're going down a road. So not very straight like this very regularly. When in comparison to a leopard track over here, this is a male leopard, which would probably be the only thing you could confuse it with, because hyenas also have quite big feet. Is a leopard, you've got the 3 lobes at the back, which are very, very distinct. You can see nice rounded kind of oval shaped toes. Gap between the toes is much bigger than on a hyena. And just generally the whole track itself is far more circular than what you see from hyena. Hyena has got a more kind of oval shaped track if you had to take the toes and the pad into account, but they also, lack of claws makes it quite easy to tell the difference between them. Right, onward. Hopefully there shall be some leopard tracks somewhere here that we will be able to see. So far, no. So far we've just got a few hyenas milling about, and we've got 1 or 2 other things happening, but no leopard tracks at all. I wonder who this could be. That was calling now, because it's not that long ago, and you know, it's kind of western side of Quarantine. Theoretically, I suppose, should be Hukamuri. It might not be though. You never know. Maybe it's one of the new boys that's been around, getting brave and making a noise. It would be interesting if it was. It certainly will put the proverbial cat amongst the pigeons, that's for sure. But I really don't see any signs of a leopard moving around in this particular section. That's in fact, don't see anything really moving around in this particular section right now. Well, Joshua, the simple reason that if you allowed people to go off-road in Kruger, it would be an absolute disaster. People would break their cars, they would be getting stuck, and just the sheer volume of people that go through the Kruger, it would just be a mess. The bush itself would not be able to handle it. Here in the Sabi Sands, you must understand that even though we do go off-road a lot, there's only a few of us. There's not, you know, a million visitors like there is in the Kruger National Park, and so there's far less vehicle traffic, which allows certain parts of the reserve to be traversed, and we're able to go kind of off-road and be sensitive to certain areas. If you just had the average person going out there, they might be, not that they intentionally do it, but they just probably wouldn't know any better, end up going over some very sensitive soil types, sensitive trees, and like I say, you would just have absolute chaos. You know, animals would be chased all over the place by people going off-road. The other thing is that this is private land, and so the Kruger National Park is not. The Kruger National Park is a government-owned land, and so the private landowners, it's up to their discretion whether they want to allow a car to go off-road and to kind of see animals. And it depends on where you work. There are a lot of differences in different places. Some of the guys will be allowed to off-road a little bit more kind of liberally than others. Some reserves will only allow you to off-road for the cats, and that's it. So, you know, it just depends where you work and what goes on, but essentially it's because one is private, one is public, and if it was in the Kruger Park, I mean, there's just no way you would be able to allow it. You would just have too many people doing too many things, and it would just cause a serious amount of damage to the environment. Right. Not much luck here. I think we might start turning back towards the hyena den, and so while we do that, let's send you back across to our bushwalk team.
We have heard a further sign or sound of Hukumuri on the radio, so not actually physically, off towards this direction here, so we'll keep going over there and see if we can't find something. In the meantime, what we have found is a shard of bone, probably the rib of a buffalo. Now, this buffalo rib has been chewed, and unusually, I think what you'll probably find is that this buffalo rib has been chewed not by a predator, but by a nyala or a kudu or a giraffe. It's been walking along, sucking it. You see where the sort of top layer has come off? It's quite wet. I mean, it could be wet from the ground, but I think it's been chewed fairly recently by one of those herbivores, because of course this is the time of the year when they are most minerally deficient, because the vegetation is so brown and minerally deficient. So they'll chew bones for the calcium and most apparently for the phosphorus. Apparently phosphorus is a really limiting mineral out here. I can't talk this morning. And phosphorus is available in these bones. So that's what this is. No. That's disgusting. Right, let's continue. You may notice also, for those of you who have joined us before, that I'm not walking without a stick, or I am walking without a stick. And I'm walking without a stick because my stick disappeared while I was on leave. So if I find the person responsible for losing my stick, I shall be forced to mete out a serious punishment to them. I'm not sure what form that punishment will take, but I'm now going to have to find another stick. Brent carries a great big caveman's club with him. I don't want to carry that. And Tina, in Africa, remember Africa is vast, right? Africa is about 3 times the size of the United States. And so to say, do we have quicksand in Africa is a question that is, well, the answer is yes, there is quicksand in Africa. There's the entire Sahara Desert in Africa where you might find some quicksand. In this particular area, however, we do not find quicksand. And the Sahara Desert, the southern extremities of the Sahara Desert, some, I don't know, 3,500 miles from where we are now. So, yes, there is quicksand in Africa, not in this particular region of Africa, though. There is a common sort of misconception that Africa is not nearly as large as it really is. And of course we do broadcast from Kenya in the afternoons as well. And Kenya is 2,500 miles away, and often we've had questions about the hyenas there and whether they're related to the hyenas here, which of course cannot be, because they are so far away from each other. Africa is a vast, vast continent of 50 countries. Now, we might be lucky across here into this sort of thickety area. Right, Rexon's starting to look a little bit excited, but Tristan is near the hyena den.
Well, we were heading to the hyenas, but we've come on to Triple M, and it seems as though there might be a sighting of something that is through the bush here. I just can't see anything. I'm trying to have a little look and just have a kind of squiz into that area, because there's a whole bunch of cars parked there, and I can't get my radio on this particular channel to work, so I just want to have a quick look with my binos just to see if I can spot anything. I would imagine it must be something of interest that is fairly smallish, because I can't see like things like ellies or rhinos or anything like that that could be around. So maybe a cat. There's a termite mound that's there. Let's go back a little bit, David. Maybe we can get lucky and have a little look around. Could very well be that this is that same cat that Rexon heard calling that has crossed into Simambili. I'm trying to see if I can see any tracks here that would indicate what's going on, but I don't see anything, to be honest. Hukamuri, did you cross this way? I suppose it could be any of them. Shadulu, Hukamuri. Don't think Inkahumas, because Brent, we know, is following those tracks, and the rest of the Inkahumas were on a giraffe kill yesterday, so I doubt that they're moving too much. The problem is we're not going to have much of a kind of... There's like a little mound that I maybe through this gap over here will have a look and see. Maybe I can scan with my binos and we'll be able to pick something up. There's a little kind of gap where there's a tall tree in the background, and that tall tree is on top of a termite mound. And on top of that, I would imagine, is what they're looking at. But I don't see anything. Is that a leopard? I think there might be a leopard there, David. Yes. Can't see nicely, but I think so. Let me roll forward slightly. It looks like spots hidden behind a whole bunch of kind of trees. So I'm going to just have a little quick look again. Yes, there is a leopard there, David. So, if you go... Now I'm going to have to try and explain to David. You see that little clump of trees that is straight in the middle there? Yes, go straight to your right a little bit. Now straight in there, as far back as you can go. Now to your right a little bit more. And there somewhere, there should be a leopard. Can anyone see spots? Emma, can you see spots on your bigger screens than what we've got? In that area there is a leopard. Now it looks very difficult to see. I'm trying to see if I can find a branch that David can also find. Yes, there it's moving now. We should be able to see it. There should be some movement. Standing up. There, can you see? So there is a leopard in there now. Which leopard that is, I am not very sure. I'm going to try and, let's be a little bit patient and see. Maybe we get lucky and this leopard moves in our direction. It seems to be standing up a little bit now. So David, I think I'm going to go forward a little bit for you, and it might be slightly better. So there we go. Now, let's see, straight in there. Straight in, go David. Yes, the spots are in the middle of the screen is where the spots are, I think. Yes, you can see the movement. There's the movement of a leopard. Now it's lying down again. This must be Hukamuri on a termite mound, I would imagine. The way that he's kind of facing into the mound and settled like that, I wonder if this leopard is not hunting warthogs in this mound. There used to be some porcupines that lived in this mound, and unfortunately they were dispatched by Mvula when he was still around. And maybe now warthogs have moved in, and that's why this leopard is actually sitting on top here. If it is the case, and it is hunting warthogs, then it is most definitely one of the boys, and I would imagine Hukamuri would be my guess as to who that could be. It's impossible, though, really to tell. I mean, maybe you guys can pull out some spots out of that, but for me, very, very tricky. So he's on your left there, David. He's kind of left of the frame, which is really not easy. I mean, how's that camouflage? Isn't that incredible? It's amazing that there is actually a leopard in amongst all of that, and so really not easy to see. The only reason I actually saw it to start with is that the tail flicked, and that's why we kind of thought there was a leopard there, but really not a great visual at all. We might be patient and just see. You never know, he might get up and move our way. I'm not sure if he's come from our side. If he's come from our side, then we've got no chance, and he's going to disappear deeper into Simambili. But let's just see. You never really know with leopards. They can change direction and move, and can always be a bit of a different kind of story, so you never know. Let's just sit and be a patient for 5 or so minutes. In the meantime, they'll send you across to Brent and see how that tracking's going.
Well, we've made our way back to the last spot we had those lion tracks, and they've gone into here. So we've done a big loop all the way around the block. There's no roads inside here. It's quite a big block. So I think I'm probably going to have to take a quick walk, hopefully, to find them on foot. Hoping they haven't moved too far. If they've moved too far, it's going to be a bit tough to jog through the bush to try to find them. But judging from the tracks, I'd say these tracks are from sometime last night, maybe early hours of this morning. And they definitely haven't crossed out of Torchwood. Courtney is wondering, are there certain animals that travel on roads more often? Hyena, lion, leopard. They'll walk down roads quite often. You must remember that a lot of the game drive roads have been put where they are because in the past there would have been big elephant paths or rhino paths or animal paths. So it's basically just like a double-laned highway for a lion or a leopard to walk down. Okay. So I think I'm going to have to go take a stroll. It's often the best way to find big cats is to go out on foot. While you're walking, you can hear more things. You're definitely more aware. And of course, once you're in the car and you're bashing and crashing, sometimes you might not pick up some of the subtleties. So one of the ways we find big cats the most often is actually on foot. And I'm hoping they haven't moved too far from where they had a nap this morning or last night. Now, lions will sleep for about 20 hours a day. But when they're moving, it's not 4 hours of straight movement. It might be 20 minutes of walking, sleep for an hour of walking, sleep for 3 hours. So it all just depends. Now, of course, let's send you across to James, who's already on foot.
Well, there's a great sense of depression in my heart at the moment, and if you look up there, you can see some vehicles, and clearly that is where Hukamuri is. I think that might actually be Tristan, is it? Yes, it is. And so, well, that's the end of our chances, I suppose. Not with the hyenas, but with the leopard. Well done, Tristan. Rexon's looking a bit bereft. Let's go this way. So this is the boundary between Djuma and Arathusa. Arathusa is the reserve to the west of us. We don't go in there. And so, well, that's why you're looking at Hukamuri with Tristan with a very poor kind of view. That's why he's not going any closer. Alrighty, let's have a look at this tree. We shall give up on the leopards for now and look at the vegetation, because the vegetation is reliable. Yes, Carol, indeed, so close and yet so far. Now, what's interesting about the jackalberry tree, to me, is that it is semi-deciduous, which means that it will lose its leaves at odd times of the year and then get them again very quickly. Now this particular tree, I suspect, has already done its losing, although it still has some to lose, but it's already started producing the new leaves, and I know these are new because they're filled with its tannin. There we are. And the tannin is obviously very red and protects the new protein-rich leaves from predation. Lots of them. And so this jackalberry has already done its shedding and is getting its new leaves, despite the fact that in fact there are still fruits in some of its branches. And you can see some of the leaves are definitely old and will still come off. Now the reason they do this is that it reduces the amount of competition they have to cope with, to just lose their leaves at odd times of the year. They maintain their leaves throughout the winter season. Sensor, what happened there? You pressed the zoom button, I see. So people got a close-up of what? My chin?
Your chest.
My chest. How wonderful. Anyway, so as I was saying here, we have the jackalberry tree, which loses its leaves for a very short period and maintains its leaves most of the way through the winter. Now, the reason that that's possible out here, of course, is that it never gets that cold, and so the necessity to go dormant isn't there for all the trees, and so many of them have adapted the ability to stay kind of going during the winter time, and that's mostly those that live on the drainage lines, which means that they get their roots down into the water table. They do replace their leaves in a big shed, and they do that around about this time of the year. Big shed, and then quickly their leaves come back again, which I think is quite clever if you live in an area like this. Yes, good. On they go. Diospirus mespelliformes. That's a fun sort of tree name to learn to say, I think. Right, let's go up in here and see what we can find. Tristan remains, of course, with his view into the place that we cannot go.
Well, I have to say, a view of a leopard is a strong word for this. There is very little that we can actually see, if we're really honest. I mean, we can't even identify who this leopard is. I'm sure, my guess is Hukamuria. It looks like a big enough leopard to be Hukamuria, and I don't know what other leopard would be here. This is kind of in his area, and so I think it is him. Unfortunately, though, that if it is him, then he must have come from our side, which means he's not going to come back here. And secondly, if he's hunting warthogs, this could be 6-7 hour wait, and we're on the main kind of road. There's cars that keep trying to kind of want to come past us, so I think we're going to leave it there and just listen out. Maybe somebody will announce on a radio channel at some point that he's kind of come back our way. But there's really no kind of view for us at all. We've sat and looked, and we can see a leopard, but who knows which leopard? It's not visible really, and so we'll leave it there and carry on. It's okay. Sometimes these things happen. Sometimes on your side, sometimes on the other side, and it's all part and parcel of life. At least the animals have the space that they need to be able to move about and do their thing. So I was hoping maybe from like a gap from here that we were going to be able to see him, but the problem is that there's a few cars in the way, and so that makes it very tricky for us to actually be able to see where he is and what he's actually doing. Maybe from here, David, you know what, we actually might get a better view here. I'm just going to try and see if there's not a gap through all of this. There is, though, but there's people between us and him, so we won't actually see him. All we're going to see is the top of people's heads. Anyway, that's okay. We'll come back later. Maybe we'll get lucky and he'll cross back our side. It's one of those things, and we'll just kind of hope that he does, or she, or whichever leopard it is, does come our side, and we'll be able to kind of catch up with it. But I haven't actually seen any tracks crossing over, so maybe we're lucky and this leopard does come our way. And Rex and James are convinced that it's Hukamuri and it's come from our side, so we'll listen to them. They probably know better than I do at this stage in terms of being on foot. Maybe they saw some tracks that were coming this direction. But hyena den then, David? Should we do that? Let's do hyena den and go and see what's happening on that side. Maybe we'll have more luck with the hyena den. Not that I ever get luck at this den at this stage. It's been, I don't know why, I get kind of, every time I go there, it just seems to be nobody around. So hopefully today is a bit different. So Michael Fleetwood, you say that you're happy that we are going to the den this morning? Yes. Hopefully it will be a fun time. I do apologize about the shake on the camera. I'm trying to kind of negotiate these horrible corrugations that we get on this road, but for the most part they can be a little bit unavoidable. So just trying to kind of get through and around them and then onto the Power Lines Road. But like I say, hoping that this will be active, because I am yet to see any hyenas at any of the dens. We keep kind of going to both dens and nothing's really happening. Brent said he went to the Philemon's den and said that there was activity still around there. So I wonder if maybe there's not a third female that potentially is looking for a den site as well. It would make sense if Ribbon is pregnant and looking for a den site, because she theoretically won't den at the same spot that Corky and Pretty den at, because ultimately they are the more dominant females within the kind of group. And so it might be that she's trying to find somewhere else. Interesting. Anyway, let's kind of carry on. Let's head towards the den. And while we do that, I believe we're sending you back, I think, to James, and I don't think they would have gotten far. I can actually see their tracks now, so I'm pretty sure they're not too far from where we are.
So we have just moved away from where the leopard was, and well, I'm not sure what we're going to look for now. Perhaps signs of the coming greenery. I would say kind of signs of the coming spring, but of course spring is now over, really. I suppose we're into summer. And so we'll see if we can't find some signs. I'm personally looking forward very much to the greenery, and also the emergence of all the insects and the flowers and those things that make a bushwalk so entertaining from a small point of view. Very much during the winter the bushwalk is a tracking exercise, because there really isn't very much small stuff to show you. But hopefully that situation will change soon. JC, we don't encounter snakes very often at all, and that's because snakes are, believe it or not, more afraid of us than we are of them. Yes, that's what I said. They are more afraid of us than we are of them. And so although there are a lot of snakes here, and we see their tracks from time to time, most of the time they will feel us, sense us coming on the ground, and they'll move away. They are very sensitive to vibrations in the ground, and so they will sense, hear our footfalls on the ground, and they will disappear. They don't like to be around us. They don't stand their ground. Some of them are territorial, but they're not territorial towards us. If you corner something like a black mamba, well then yes, you're going to be in trouble and you will suffer some danger. And if you stand on a puff adder and don't move quickly enough, it might bite you. But otherwise, really, snakes do not pose a huge danger to us here. You always have to be careful, but yeah, I've never had an issue with a snake out here. I have had to catch a number in lodges, but I've never had a sort of threatening situation in the bush. I think the scariest one I had was when I came round a corner once. I was trying to help track a leopard, and it was a sort of thicket like this, and there was a termite mound, and it was a cool sort of early spring morning, and I came round the corner and I stepped onto the termite mound and looked over the edge, and there was a mamba lying in the sun, and he sat up like this, and I disappeared with the speed of a recently fired bullet. Calcix, yes, there are a few edible things out here in the bush. There are always some ziziphus leaves, some buffalo thorn leaves. Those are edible. There are one or two tubers that, yes, you could probably eat now. There's the inner bark of knobthorn trees. That's always edible. I think you'd struggle to survive out here, as I've always said, unless you were able to hunt something. So there's always meat if you can catch it. But I think that if you were a, let's say, you were a vegan caveman or a vegan hunter-gatherer of old, you'd become very thin very quickly at this time of the year. You would unfortunately either die or be forced to renounce your veganism and eat a little bit of meat. You wouldn't have to eat a lot, but you'd have to eat some. There simply is no fruit around at all. There are a few leaves, one or two tubers, but not much else. You must remember, of course, that the soil here, if we look at it, is very poor. And one of the reasons that this particular area is not too bad, it's a sodic area, so there's a bit of sodium in this particular soil. But one of the reasons that this area is a wildlife area is that nobody has managed to find any minerals in the ground that they can sell. In other words, the miners haven't managed to pillage the place. And also the farmers have tried in here. They've tried to run cattle here. They've tried to plant all sorts of things on this ground, and it simply doesn't work. The soil is one of the most ancient areas in Africa, which means it's leached of all its nutrients. So I think that there has been, I think I've said this before a few times, but it's one of the areas in Africa that has been most stable for the longest periods. There's no volcanic activity here for a longer period than in most other areas, and that means that the soil is poor. And so even if you grow things in your garden, they tend to be very nutrient poor. And that means that farming has never taken place here. And I forget exactly what the question was or where it came from, but it basically means that that's why this entire area was designated as a game reserve so many years ago, because nobody could exploit it for anything else. Once all the ivory was shot out, remember, only 5 elephants left, 5 in this area, 5 to 8 left in this area when it was proclaimed in around about 1898. So once they'd managed to completely exploit it monetarily, it was impossible to make any money out of it, and that's why it became the world-renowned game reserve that it is now. And ironically, one of the most expensive pieces of land you could buy or rent is in this area.
Indeed you are. It seems as though Brent has fallen off the end of the earth and has disappeared on us, so don't know quite where he is or what's going on. Hopefully the Nkumas haven't eaten him, but we're still trying to get towards the den. We're just slowly making our way there, kind of just bumbling really. I don't want to try and rush too much. I'm hoping though that if the den is active, that we should have a nice long sighting at least. That's the idea anyway. But still not sure exactly who that leopard was. Thoughts are between everybody is that it's Hukumuri, but I'll try and confirm when I finish drive. I'm pretty sure we'll get a confirmation from somebody that they saw him, and it looks, I mean, just from a size point of view through binoculars, it looked like it could be him, but it's tricky to say. I mean, you lose a largest girl and the kind of visual that we had, it's not exactly easy to confirm or deny, but I would imagine that Hukumuri must be the right one. If we heard calling and tracks and those kind of things, tend to suggest that it is him, which will be nice to kind of catch up with him, although I didn't really get to see much of him, just kind of saw some spots between the thicket, but at least to know that he's doing all right and moving around. He seems to have been doing very well lately. He's had lots of females that he's mated with, he's been on a few kills, and seems to be looking very good. I saw some photos of him the other day where he was looking in fine fettle, so glad that he's doing well and that he's kind of settled down away from here really, because that's allowed obviously things to be a lot better on this side for Hosana and even Tingana to a degree. Okay, let's see now. Will you be active, Hyena Den? Don't let me down. Probably not going to be active at this stage. I don't see any sign of any hyena milling about. Come on. It's not looking promising at this stage. As is my luck with this den, it continues to be barren for me. So, no hyenas once again. There's obviously very evident sign that they've been here, but they are not really around. Now, of course, you should really come to the hyena den early in the morning and late in the afternoons, but I thought maybe, given it's been such a cool morning, that maybe they'd still be around or had made their way back. But alas, once again, it is just an empty hole in a termite mound for me this morning. Hyenas, get your act together. Nonsense, this. It's honestly about the 10th time I've tried to come and see the den and have had absolutely zero at it. Alright, David, plan B now, or C, or D. We're on to plan D, I think, by now. Let's go and see what could be lurking around. Maybe try and go find Hosanna properly this time. I was hoping to have a nice morning with the little cubs, but anyway, it's okay. We'll try and again at another time. Maybe we'll get lucky in the afternoon, or maybe tomorrow. You never know. At least there is a den, and it's always nice when there is. And I wonder why it's been so kind of intermittent. You know, often dens are fairly kind of constant. You go there and there's at least one member kind of sitting around. But this den, it seems to be very hit or miss, unless you're Jamie, of course, which seems to be able to talk to the hyenas and keep the hyenas at bay every time she comes. She's kind of always coming to the dens, and the hyenas are everywhere, which is good, I suppose. She puts out the right energy for hyenas. She absolutely loves them, so not surprised that they're always out when she is around. Very lucky. I think I might be the only one that hasn't actually seen the little ones yet. Maybe Brenty. I don't know, but everybody else seems, I think, to have seen them already. Cute little things, that's for sure. They really are kind of... Especially that one with a little patch on his face, or her face. They very, very, very kind of cute little thing that kind of pokes its head out and bounces around. And hyena cubs have got to be one of the most kind of underrated animals out here. They seriously are entertaining. I thoroughly enjoy spending time with them. They can change a person's perception on hyenas in an instant, which is kind of why I used to like them, as it used to get people to actually realize hyenas are not horrible animals that are, you know, dirty and kind of thieves. They're actually highly intelligent and can be seriously cute and quite playful. So it's nice when you get dens like that. So like I say, when I was a guide, I always used to try and take every single set of guests to a hyena den and try and just kind of get them to realize that hyenas are in no way horrible animals. They're actually very, very cool animals that deserve a little bit of kind of respect and actually a bit of admiration. So I think that it's changing, though. You know, the more kind of shows like this, or, you know, any sort of things that follow hyenas around, the more people actually start to kind of like them. The problem is that a lot of them display hyenas in the worst light, where they'll kind of show them as these thieving predators that kill others and chase animals off their meals, and that's kind of where this bad reputation has come from. And I suppose Lion King, to a degree, didn't help either. Okay, let's get down Gallagher's shortcut. We'll go past Gallagher Pan, just in case anything's been lurking around there, and then we'll go towards the dam wall again and go and scratch around, see where little Hosanna cat can be. That's going to be probably our next plan. It's okay. I believe a lot of you feel bad that I haven't seen the cubs yet. That's okay. It goes like that sometimes. It's just, to be honest, it's not exactly kind of, I've been going at bad times, to be honest. It's not really the hyena's fault. It's maybe my fault. I should theoretically head there first thing in the morning and quite late in the evenings. But, you know, it's been kind of funny weather, and that means that, you know, we haven't really kind of had consistent sort of days where you can predict where you're going to go and when they're going to be there. But anyway, it'll happen eventually. I'll find them and see them. In the meantime, though, let's send you back across to James.
It's a very unusual feathered friend in so much as we don't often get them on camera. and it is two grey-headed bush shrikes. Now they're common here, they're not uncommon birds at all. You hear them going fairly voracious predators of anything smaller than them, but you find them feeding in the mid-strata normally, in other words lower down than they are now, and normally also in thick bush. To have them sitting on the end of a tree like that is extremely unusual. Now, they could easily, as Rexon says, be youngsters. They look a little bit fluffy, and so I think that's probably why they're sitting out in the open. They're not quite adult yet. Isn't that gorgeous? The grey-headed bush shrikes. Now the bush shrikes are all that sort of orangey yellow grey colour. The other common one we get here is the orange-breasted bush shrike, which is distinguished from this one by being smaller and by having a black bandit's mask around its eyes. Yeah, that's definitely a youngster. I've never had a sighting of these birds like this. James, the migratory bird species here the shortest time? Well, I mean, one of the last to arrive is the woodland kingfisher. And I'm trying to think if they're one of the last to leave. No, I think they leave pretty much at the same time as everyone else. So I'm going to go with something like the woodland kingfisher. They'll only be here next month. Many of the migratory birds have arrived already. I can hear the cuckoos calling from time to time. And especially as today heats up and the sort of, I suppose the insects start to emerge and it starts to feel sort of humid, summery. I think you're going to hear the cuckoos more and more. So they are all here. Steppe eagles tend to arrive relatively late, I suppose, and leave at the same time as everyone else. Swallows, maybe? No, the swallows, I've definitely seen a few barn swallows around, so they're here already. I'm going to go with the woodland kingfisher. I think he spends the least time down here, which is interesting because he does breed here. But normally only starts yelling his head off around about mid-November. Let's just have one last look at this very special bird. And I say they're voracious predators. I mean, they're not raptors, of course, they are shrikes. You can see that from the tooth on the end of their bills. But they will eat just about anything that they can catch. So that would be caterpillars and grasshoppers and that sort of thing crawling around on the trees. But also they'll take chameleons if they can catch them. They'll take small snakes. Beautiful. Right, let's continue. We don't know exactly where we're going to go, probably towards the northern boundary, see if we maybe can pick up on some hyenas that Tristan can come to. Brent is still with the lions. Well, their tracks.
Indeed I am. So I followed those tracks for about 800 meters before I had to get back to the car. And they were heading in a northwesterly direction. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just double checking the fire break here carefully. We've already checked the northern boundary and nothing's crossing there. So I'm just double checking here. If nothing, I'm going to drive back to about a little bit behind where we are now, and then I'm going to take a gamble. Now, often when tracking, especially when you can't spend an hour off the vehicle following track to track, the most important thing is learn how to gamble well. So I know more or less where the tracks are going. I know they don't cross this road in front of us here. So that tells me that the lions are definitely in this area here. So I'm going to now try guess and think like a lion and walk in on no tracks and hope to either be really good at guessing and walk into where they are, or cut the tracks again. And that'll give, if that happens, it gives me another idea. It again closes down the area that I've got to search. So I think they might be on the trail of that herd of buffalo, but the buffalo have crossed to the north, so maybe they caught up with the buffalo and they're sitting happy and fat on a buffalo kill somewhere in here, or they didn't and they were unsuccessful and they've decided to have a snooze somewhere in this area. Both are highly probable. Minamu is asking, is the soil easier to drive on at Djuma or in the Mara? In Djuma, there's not even a doubt. That volcanic ash in the Mara turns into absolute slick, sticky, impossible mud. So yeah, it's much easier soil here at Djuma to drive on. Okay, this is my gamble spot, my guess spot, where I'm going to take a stroll from. And one of the reasons I'm choosing this is there's some nice big termite mounds that I can climb up, so I can see big distances without covering too much ground. I'm just going to listen for a second. See if there's any alarm calls. But all silent so far. It seems like Tristan is on the spot today, and I'm not sure if it's the same one, but I think he's found another leopard.
Indeed we have. We have found another leopard, which is very, very good. So we found Tingana, and that maybe explains why Hukumuri probably moved off. Now the problem with Tingana is he's now going to go into a horrible thicket because he's hunting impalas at the moment. That's what he's doing. So we're going to try to keep up with him before he disappears, because once he gets into this area, it's going to be very tricky for us to follow him. But it was a very kind of random find, was Tingana. We were driving along and I was talking to David, and we were chatting about all things game drive, and out of the corner of my eye I just saw a leopard standing right next to the road, which is quite nice. Well, not right next to the road, but a few meters off the road, which was very pleasant. And so quite glad that we managed to spot him and that he was standing where he was, because if he was where he is now, I don't think we would have actually seen him, which would have been quite tricky. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to move too close to him if he's still stalking. So I'm going to just try and get into this little gap here and then hopefully sit fairly still. So we know definitely that that leopard on the termite mound is not Tingana, because, well, he's here. So I think Hukumuri is a good bet. Tingy, don't walk too much further because I can't see you otherwise. It's going to be very difficult to follow him through this area, but we will try our very, very best. He's looking still magnificent, even though he's probably been mating his heart out and has really not had too many chances to eat. He still looks really good and is his bulky normal self. And I wonder if maybe the leopard we heard sawing was not actually Tingana this morning. So maybe that's who Rex and James heard. Maybe it was him. It's not far from where they heard him sawing. But look at that. Isn't that beautiful? You're looking very good, my boy, considering your age. You've done a sterling effort to recuperate from your illness. You can see he's just kind of looking over his shoulder every time. He's trying to kind of figure out a way how he can move without being spotted. The impalas that he's looking at now are still quite far away. They're probably, I would say, maybe a good 50-60 meters to our sort of left-hand side, so he's got to kind of cover a bit of ground. And what he's trying to do is just trying to get around into a thicket. There's a little drainage section, into that drainage section, and then he can maybe loop around to where those impalas are. You can just see them kind of through that area. So he's got a bit of a way to go, unfortunately. He's going to have to do a bit of maneuvering. The problem that he has is he's got a little open gap now that he's got to cross, and that's why he's not moved. He's just standing there because that gap that he's got to cross is probably in all likelihood going to lead to him being spotted if he's not careful. So you probably find he's waiting for the impalas to feed and to drop their heads, and then as they drop their heads he can slowly slink along. Look, there we go. And see how he's getting nice and low. Well, don't stand on a thorn, that's not going to do well for you. He's just keeping his head down as he goes. I'm not sure we're going to have the longest sighting of him, but it's still going to be epic either way. Now Snazzy, you say beautiful old boy. He is a beautiful fella, isn't he? He's really kind of come back to his normal self. I just heard one of the impalas. I was just waiting to see if it did alarm call. The problem is we're going to lose him very quickly now in this if we don't catch up with him around this bend, because where he's heading is not very pleasant at all. In fact, he's already been spotted. The impalas have seen him. They're busy shouting at him already. So let's try and get to where he is. Carol, I'm not sure. I mean, there was lots of tracks for leopards all over the place this morning, so difficult to really know who was who and whether it was Tingana that was calling or Hukamuri that was calling. Tough to say, to be honest with you. Possibly he might have heard Hukamuri during the night and decided, this is my territory, not yours, and came in and just sent a very clear message to Hukamuri that he is back and he is still here. Tingana, how do you get so far so quickly? He's miles ahead of us already. He's obviously, with these impalas shouting at him, has trotted off a little bit, and so now he's kind of gotten himself a long way in front of where we are. And I don't even know if I'm going to be able to catch up with him. Certainly not going to be able to cross this drainage line with him, which means that we're going to have a very, very brief sighting, and then I think that's going to be it. Oh, come on. I'm trying to get close to where he was. He's somewhere on my right-hand side is the last time I saw him. But it's so thick in here and so many fallen over trees. It makes it really tricky to actually follow anything through this area. And he's going away from me further. Of course he is. We're going to try and kind of worm our way to where he is. He's at least heading roughly in a better direction than he first was. You know, if he'd gone this way to my left, it would have been very tricky, but at least this direction that he's heading, now it opens out a little bit, and there might actually even be a place where I can cross the drainage line to follow him if he goes over. Come on. So, Chitty Chatty Meg, yes, leopards will mate as regularly as lions will. It's just that with a leopard, and you know, it's often the case is that I find lions tend to be more kind of proactive about mating and will try and find a male more regularly to kind of do it, and then you'll find that they repeat it more often. But I suppose this female has been every 2 weeks. Well, it's been 2 weeks since she was doing it last time, and now again. Where has he gone? He was right here. Oh, there he is. He's up ahead of us. This is really not a friendly area at all at the moment. Come on, Jigger. You can do it. Tingana, honestly, do you have to walk so fast? He's on a serious mission. There we go. Finally, we've caught up with him. Problem is, we're not going to have him for long. The way that he's walking, it's going to be very tricky to keep up with him. There he goes. Let's see, he's got his tail up. Are you going to start scent marking at least? That will slow him down a little bit. He's dropping off into that drainage itself. He might come up and around on the other side there. A little bit of scent marking. So hopefully this is going to mean that he's going to start thinking about walking slightly slower than what he has been, because he's been crazy. But in terms of the mating, what we were talking about just now, the frequency of mating within the kind of period that female's in estrus will be the same between leopard and lions. I mean, they'll both mate every 5 to 10 minutes. There's no real kind of difference in that regard. Tingana, thankfully, you have walked in not a bad area, so we actually have been able to keep up with him far better than I thought we would. Good. Anyway, we're going to try see where he heads off to. While we do that, though, let's send you back across to the bushwalk team.
Interesting occurrence here on this termite mound. We've got two cousins living in close proximity to each other, which is not particularly unusual, but it's quite nice to demonstrate. Both of these cousins produce bright red flowers, one of which drips nectar, and the more clued up of you will know that I'm talking of Schottia or Scotia brachypetala, the weeping boer bean. That is the big tree over here, Scotia brachypetala. I was thinking of climbing this tree, but will probably fall on my buttocks, and that will be embarrassing. Yes. Oh, now I'm stuck. Oh, yes. There we are. I've made it. I'm like an agile baboon, as you can see. Must be like watching a trapeze artist. Sort of. Anyway, this is Schottia brachypetala, the weeping boer bean. It was quite nerve-wracking. It was much more difficult than I thought it was going to be. And the reason, of course, I've got up here so that I can pick you a leaf and we can compare it with its smaller cousin. There we go. I'm going to have to get down, of course. Senzo, thank you very much. You just hold on to that. Thank you for all of you telling me to be careful as I slide out of this tree, my aging muscles taut and stretching to the max. So like I say, they both produce red flowers. I'm going to jump now, Senzo. Are you ready? Here I go. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. And the smaller cousin is over here. Where is that leaf? Thank you very much. Here is the dwarf boer bean, Scotia capitata. There it is. Now, if you look at the leaves, this is a compound leaf, right? So that is one leaf there. That is a leaflet. But if you look, I'll pick a full leaf here, and then we can compare the two. Can you see how similar they are in terms of their shape? See what I mean? And this one has got what we call a winged rachis. In other words, the stalk has got little sort of wings on it, photosynthetic wings, which the main one doesn't, the large one doesn't seem to. I seem to remember seeing some that do, but it doesn't actually, this particular one. So you can see a similar kind of a shape, and they both produce the beautiful red flowers. I'm not sure why this one isn't flowering now, because a number of them are flowering. So, Scotia capitata, the dwarf boer bean, and Scotia brachypetala, the weeping boer bean, all together. Isn't that just wonderful?
Yes, you are. Well, actually, Tingana, I'm just sitting watching Tingana, but you're seeing Tingana at the moment is what you're busy doing. And he's taking it very easy at the moment. He's just kind of watching around. I think he's hungry. I mean, obviously after this mating period that he's had, which was long. I mean, he was mating almost for 5 days, which is a very long period for a leopard. And he is, I think, looking for food quite seriously. The way that he's walking around and the way that he's kind of stalking and checking, it almost looks as though he's very much interested in trying to find a good meal fairly shortly. He spotted something from on top of that bank that he looked like he was interested in stalking, and then he's kind of dropped down now and doesn't look as interested. I wonder if maybe something just ran away or moved off in some direction, and that's why he's kind of just going to try and trot after it. Let's just see if we can get a better view as we go around this kind of section here. Where has he gone now? He's moving so fast that it's, you know, difficult to kind of actually keep up with him at the moment. David, can you see him? Oh, he's crossing over. Tingana, really? Do we have to go through there? You can see he's just kind of sniffing around. His tail's up, which is just a sign to the squirrels that are shouting at him that he's not to be shouted at. But he's definitely smelling. Now let's see if he phlegm grimaces. Not really. As he maybe picked up a scent of a prey animal. You can see he's smelling all over the place. And now he's scent marking. And these are areas that Hosanna has been walking around quite regularly, so maybe that's what he's smelling, and just making sure everybody knows that he's still the dominant boy in this area. Lots and lots of marking going on, so he's not stalking something, it's more that he's just trying to show everybody who's boss. Right, let's try and just get into where I think he's going to go. It's going to be a bit tricky because he's going to head into a deep drainage line, which is obviously not easy for us, but there is a way to get to where I think he's going to go. He's actually walking exactly where he had that kind of that moment with Tandi and Tlalamba a few weeks ago. That's kind of the direction that he's busy heading at the moment, so we'll try and just kind of sneak through here. Right, now we're going to try and head off to where I think he's going to go, and while we do that, let's send you across to Brent, who is still on the trail of the Nkuhuma Pride.
Oh yes, we were still on the trail of the lions. Unfortunately, that area they've walked into is a massive area with no roads, and I think it's going to take me a good hour on foot to find them. I think I'll do that this afternoon when they're probably not going to move anymore and I have a better chance of finding them. So the lions have defeated me for now. This afternoon is a different story, and we decided to just come have a quick look around Gwari Pan. I'm quite close to that area, and see if Tandi and Tlalamba might have meandered back onto Djuma. And this is one of their favorite hangouts, this area, and no one else has driven this side of the reserve, so if we find tracks, they should be pristine. So far, only tracks of hyena. Now, Tandi's probably the most difficult of our leopards to track and find. She doesn't seem to like walking in straight lines. Hello, Jason. Jason's wondering, do predators use the wind to their advantage while hunting? Yes and no. I think it's more of a... It's not more of a decision. Sometimes when the wind is in their favor, it can work very well. But I don't think the predators will actively seek out to be downwind or whatnot, because as soon as they see something, the instinct takes over and they must stalk. Oh, there's someone at home. See that nest there? It's swaying. It's a red-headed weaver's nest, and the males will be very busy at the moment getting it ready. Now, female red-headed weavers, and actually most female weaver species, can be quite difficult, and if they don't like the nest, they'll actually pull it apart and force the male to start again. I thought someone might be at home because it was swaying in the wind. I think it's just the gentle breeze that's pushing it though. Okay. Let's go check towards Central Road. Well, we try to find a cat of our own. Let's send you back to Tristan, who's got Tingana.
Good luck, Brenty. Hopefully you'll find the cats at some point. Maybe the lions will come out of that area with no roads. Anyway, we've caught up with Tingana again, and luckily came out exactly where we thought he might, which is in the same spot that we had him with Thandi and Kalamba those weeks ago. So we kind of got lucky in that he was exactly where I thought he might go. You see he's creeping around a little bit, and that's because there's a nyala that's north of him that is kind of feeding and looking, and so he's just trying to stay somewhat hidden. You might see the nyala now straight over the back of him. You see the dark spot between the kind of tree there? There it is. That's the nyala that he is trying to avoid. There's a very big nyala bull, so I don't think he's actually trying to particularly go after it, but he is watching it and just making sure that he kind of creeps around. Lots and lots of smelling as well, so pretty sure he's picking up Hosana's scent all over the place here. And this is an area that we know Hosana's been spending a lot of time, and just kind of sniffing around. It doesn't look like he's angry. He's not starting to salivate, or he's not calling. He's just kind of sniffing around and just checking what's happening. At this stage, Hosana is his DNA, and therefore not really something that he needs to stress about too much, but he's just kind of hidden behind this little thicket at the moment. So let's just try and reposition ourselves slightly. So Raphael, yes, he should be, now that he's broken off of that female, I'm pretty sure he's done with the mating session for now. She might come into an estrus again in a few weeks' time, and he'll mate with her again, or another female, obviously. But for that particular mating session, I'd imagine that it is now complete and that they are no longer going to be mating anymore. She's probably falling out of her estrus cycle now, and therefore, the mating is complete. So it was a long mating session. Like I say, it was 4 or 5 days. It's a long time for any leopard to be mating. All right, well, he's drifting off again. We're gonna, I don't know, it's gonna be tricky. We're gonna try keep up with him. It's gonna be not easy at all, but hopefully, I'm hoping he's gonna head across this drainage and up onto the other side. Then it becomes a lot easier for us actually to be able to follow where he's gone. In the meantime, it's going to be a bit of a roundabout route. Right, now we're going to kind of try get to where I think he's going to go. In the meantime, though, let's send you across to Brent and an African hawk eagle.
Definitely my favorite eagle we get on Djuma. And that is a very, very full hawk eagle. Look how full its crop is. Isn't she? I can't see if that's. It's very difficult to sex hawk eagles, but they are monogamous and they live in pairs. Now their nest is not far from here, at the junction of Central Road. And the hawk eagles have nested on Djuma every year since I've been here. Now they are incredible hunters. They take francolin, guinea fowl, squirrels, monitor lizards, whatever they can catch. But one of their tactics to catch birds is one of the hawk eagles will fly high in the sky so all the guinea fowl, francolin can see it, and they go and they start alarming, and the other one comes low through the trees. I've actually seen them catch a guinea fowl on quarantine. It was spectacular, just this explosion of feathers. Yes, Cheryl, this is indeed a gorgeous eagle. I said my favorite eagle species that we get here on Djuma. By far, I don't think the other eagles even come close. Absolutely stunning. Well, let's go check the nest. Maybe we can see the other pair. Carol says it looks very mighty. Indeed, they are. They're actually one of the smaller eagles, though, but they are very proficient hunters. Now, when you see one perched like that. Actually, we might get a closer view through the tree here. There's a bit of branches in the way, I'm afraid, Sebastian. Yeah, there's quite a few branches in the way. Oh, so pretty. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? Can hear a squirrel shouting at it. Oh, there's another one of its favorite, oh, disappeared prey species right here. Let's just go around a little bit. Where'd you go? There you go. See, look, that top hole. Oh, it's popped its head back. There we go. And that top hole on the termite mound. So to the, there we go, center frame now. So there's two holes, go to the top one. Down, there we go. Inside the hole is a little dwarf mongoose. Hello, watch out, there's a hawk eagle around. It would be very wise to stay well hidden. They are wonderful little creatures, dwarf mongoose. I do love their Shangaan name, which is Matsikitsoch, which is from the sound they make. Indigo Girl says they are so cute. Indeed they are, and they are bite-sized for a hawk eagle. Chop, next one. So they're only waking up now. They only get moving when it's a bit warmer. Oh, all the holes have got mongoose, and even the lower holes. There we go. Here, that. So down a bit, Seb. Oh, yeah. There we go. Little nose. Oh, shiny eyes. Oh, they are magnificent. Oregon Way, it says, I love the way their noses wiggle. They are awesome. Sniffity, sniffity. And you can see those long claws that they use to dig out various different insects and stuff. Now, the dwarf mongoose and the mara are completely different color. So the dwarf mongoose and the mara are actually sort of orange colored, not dark brown. Giraffe Girl says it's a mongoose apartment complex. Indeed it is. These old termite mounds are ideal habitat for a dwarf mongoose, and they'll have multiple of these apartment blocks within their territory that they will utilize, and when it comes to hiding from predators such as that African hawk eagle, or for sleeping in. Oh, an old duck. Oh no, he's coming back. When you're as small as a dwarf mongoose, it pays to be cautious before you venture out into the wild. Being so little, everything eats them. Alyssa is asking, how long does it take for a termite mound to reach that size? Well, it takes a lot of time, Alyssa. No one's entirely sure, and it depends on the species, but a couple of 100 years. Multiple queens as well. Even after they're abandoned, though, they can stay vertical for incredibly long periods of time. Shadowy Pancakes is wondering, are there still termites that live here? No. And this is an extinct mound, and the dwarf mongoose have decided to make it their home. Oh, so cute. There you go. Okay, let's go. As I said, we're almost at the African hawk eagle's nest. I wonder if we're going to spot the second member. Well, so they're nesting in that tree just up ahead there. So once you see one, it's always good to keep a check out for the other. But in the meantime, it sounds like Tingana is up and about and on the move.
Indeed, we got very lucky in that Tingana chose the best route possible to go through all of those drainage lines that we were able to follow him pretty much for the most part all the way through. Luckily also, I had just done it recently with Tani and Kalamba and Hosanna, so I had a little sneaky kind of pathway that we could use to get through there, which was quite nice. And he's just sort of strolling out in the open now, which is very, very pleasant. There's going to be a vehicle that he's going to cross behind and move past. Tingy, are you going to come out next to us? That's what we're going to hope. No, he's just paused because he's probably spotted something. He's paused right next to the vehicle. You can see that he's just watching in front of him, so maybe he's seen something that he would like to go after. He's ignored the nyalas completely, but I'm pretty sure something like a Impala might be a decent sort of meal for him, so that vehicle is going to move out of our shot, which is very nice of them. I'm going to go forward a little bit for you, David, because I want to try and get his face rather than just the side of him. I don't know what's making this noise, but Jigger's got a horrible noise all of a sudden. I suspect it is the brake protector. We've got a little piece of metal that goes along the brakes that protects the pads and the discs, and so I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Hello, boy. He does look good, doesn't he? He's still looking seriously big. It's amazing to me that even after mating he's looking as good as he is. He must have found a meal somewhere, because there's no ways after all that activity and that time frame that he can be this kind of sort of bulky still. I mean, his stomach is sucked in a little bit, but it's nowhere near as kind of thin as it normally is. You know, if after a mating session he looks surprisingly good for the amount of time he was mating. So I wonder if he didn't get scavenger meal somewhere, something small. You never know, he might have caught something a little bit and eaten last night or something. Snazzy, yes, there is such a thing as scent mark wars. It's a constant kind of game that gets played between all these leopards as they scent mark and try and kind of outmaneuver one another in order to be able to get defined territories and boundaries, and to make sure that everybody is kind of kept at bay or expands their territory. So there's a constant kind of war that goes on when it comes to scent marking. I'm just going to make some space for somebody else to come past us so that they can get a nice view as well, because we had a very, very, very nice view of them. They're going to go around us. Okay. That also suits us. That really does not sound very pleasant. I wonder if maybe when we went through some of those thickets it didn't just move that brake. Yes, that doesn't sound great. Right, well, we're going to figure out what the noise is and see if we can fix it for you. And while we do that, though, let's send you to James with a bird that is eating.
What we have there, everybody, is a beautiful bird. One of my favorite groups of birds, and it is an acacia pied barbet. Now, we can't see it at the moment. It's gone up to the top. Senzo, you got him there. That is the acacia pied barbet. I'm going to play you its call and see if this thing doesn't call back to us. It sounds as follows. That's the common call. Now it stopped eating because it thinks there's a very loud acacia pied barbet not far from it. And it's sitting in a jackalberry tree that is in full fruit. And the barbets are, of course, frugivores, when they can be. He's at the top now. There's also a Cape glossy starling going, or Cape glossy starling, Cape glossy starling. You still see him there, Sens? Still got him. Isn't he lovely? I think he's the most beautiful bird. No, Lisa, it's not a fig tree, it is a jackalberry tree. Fig trees we do have here. I haven't seen any in fruit at the moment, and the fruits on the fig trees here don't appear to be hugely edible. But like with most wild fruit, or fruit that hasn't been bred for eating, you know, the fruit tends to be slightly less palatable than that you'd buy at a shop. Yeah, it's a new bird for many lists, I think, Tina. The acacia-pied barbet. We've seen the black-collared barbet and the crested barbet often. The acacia-pied barbet, which is not uncommon here, but is very secretive normally, is not something that we see often. I don't think I've ever put one on camera before. They're quite common in the Mara, like I say, and there are a few other barbet species, lots of barbet species up there that we don't get here. We should also get one of the tinker birds or tinker barbets here as well, but they mainly occur where it's slightly wetter. Gorgeous. Still got him there. It's brilliant. I can't see him anymore. Well done, Senzo. I'm just going to move to the side slightly. This time of the year, if you can find a tree in fruit or in flower, you're almost always going to have action there. There'll always be something interesting going on because there's not a huge amount to eat elsewhere. Ooh, I've got a lovely view of him here. Sitting right at the top of the tree, looking around with him, seeing what's about, trying to figure out what was making the call. Anna-Marie, it depends very much on the ripeness of the jackalberry. When they're slightly overripe, they've got a very nice sweet taste to them. When they're like they are now in the tree, they are pretty disgusting. They've got that property of most fruits out here that just suck the moisture out of your mouth and leave you feeling as though you've just swallowed a mouthful of sand. But when they're very, very ripe, they go almost, well, it's a dark sort of chocolate brown colour, and the skin doesn't so much slide off as crack off. Then there's a kind of pasty, quite sweet fruit inside, which is nice to eat. But it's seldom that you get them at that stage, because by then the baboons have savaged them, and so have all the monkeys and barbets like this as well. But if a primate comes across this tree, they'll devour the fruit. And of course, it's always fascinating to me to look at a tree like this and think that every single one of those fruits, I think they've got 2 or 3 or 4 seeds in each. Every single one of those seeds could become another jackalberry tree. And there are thousands of fruits on this tree, and therefore there are thousands of seeds on the tree, and almost certainly none of them will make it to being a big tree like this. If this tree here manages to produce, I don't know, over the course of its, say, 100-year life, if it manages to produce another 5 or 6 trees of the same size, that would be quite an achievement, I would imagine. And yet it has produced countless thousands of potentially viable jackalberry trees. That's just because, of course, there is so much that wants to eat these things. Right, we're not too far from Tingana. We're going to try and skirt him as we start making our gentle way back towards home. So let's go back to the resting Duke.
Well, Tingana has finally decided just to stop for 2 seconds, which is quite pleasant for us because it's been a tough kind of morning trying to follow him around through all these thickets, and he's moved much faster than he normally does, which is kind of what's made it a bit tricky. Normally Tingana's got a kind of slow kind of amble that he just plods along and makes himself kind of, well, known, but not really moving around in hugely fast movements. This morning, on the other hand, has been very different. He's been very, very busy and kind of up and down and round and about and doing it all with quite a bit of purpose. And so I wonder what could be up that he has decided he needs to move as fast as he has. He's not sawing in any way, which means that he's not stressed about whoever he's smelling. If he was smelling an intruder, you'd find he'd salivate, he would saw, he would try and kind of push that intruder out and try and make sure that intruder knew that he was around. So he's been fairly kind of quiet, and he's, like I say, not salivating, which means that the scent that he's smelling is not something that concerns him in any way. And that means that I'm pretty sure he's still happy with Hosana being around. And it's interesting because Hosana is obviously trying to kind of mark territory these days, and he's spraying, and maybe it's just learned behavior, but he is definitely kind of laying down scent marks, and the fact that Tingana is not too stressed by that is actually not the worst thing in the world. It's kind of a good thing. And I wonder if there's a school of thought that's because it's his DNA. I know we're not finished walking yet. Because it's his DNA that he's actually kind of not that worried about it. Also, maybe he realizes he's getting older and rather keep his DNA around than maybe another's. I don't know. It's an interesting kind of thing, and it's going to be very intriguing to see how it all plays out. You know, Hosana is only 2 years and sort of 8 months, and he's still got a lot of kind of growing to do. Now, will Hosana get as big as Tingana? Maybe. Difficult to know for sure. I would imagine that it can possibly happen. It's always tricky to know how big leopards are going to get. So Hosana's definitely going to be a bulky boy. He's going to kind of... I think we need to put our aerial up, because our aerial is a little bit all over the place. So we're going to have to put our aerial up, otherwise we'll lose signal. But... yeah, you know, it's difficult to say with leopards how kind of big they're going to be. You never really know. He might be. He's definitely kind of going to be a bulky individual. Whether he gets as tall and as big as Tingana, well, that all remains to be seen. Right. Now, I'm going to try and just kind of go past this mound. I was hoping he was going to find himself a nice little shady termite mound and sit on it, but that seems like that's not going to happen. It seems as though we are destined to drive further and to drive all the way along. He's going towards Buffelshoek because we're not going to have him for much longer. In fact, I'd say probably if he keeps up this pace within 10 minutes or 15 minutes, he'll already be into Buffelshoek itself, and that's going to mean that we are obviously going to lose visual of him if he does cross over. It's been really nice to kind of hang out with the Duke this morning. Cardinal, no, maybe a slight little limp there, but nothing major. Certainly nothing that's going to be anything to worry about. You know, in the mating process, there's a lot of physical activity that takes place, and that means that you sometimes see there's a little kind of paw injury. Maybe she clawed him or bit him on the paw a bit, and it's a bit sensitive, but he's not walking badly. I mean, even if there's a little bit of a limp there, there's definitely nothing that's going to stop him from hunting or being able to defend his territory. So he's getting older, so these kind of little limps will develop as he gets kind of ages and starts to get, you know, life catching up with him. He's much like us as we start to get older, so small little things start to develop, and the lifestyle that we've led previously starts to kind of catch up a little bit, and it'll maybe be the same with him. But for now, he looks okay. He looks like he's doing just fine and that he's going to be all right. I don't think that limp is anything to worry about. Certainly not the worst limp we've seen on any of our cats out here. You think of the Evoker male, or you think of many others, and how they've survived. I think he'll be just fine. I don't think he needs to stress too much at all. But still kind of moving off deeper into the thicket. Right, now which way am I going to go here? Alyssa, do leopards purr like domestic cats? No, they don't. It's part of the reason why they are able to raw or saw as it's known, is because they don't have the ability to basically purr. I don't even know where I'm going to go here. There's just so many branches and fallen over trees that it's getting a little bit kind of hairy, to be honest, and poor Jigger doesn't sound great as it is. I don't really want to take it over too much more. There we go, that's alright, so we can get through there. Tingana, can you not stop, please? It's just such an area full of fallen over stumps. It's not very easy at all. Anyway, I'll try to catch up with them for one last view. While we do that though, let's send you across to Brent.
Well, we're just taking a lovely little drive down the edge of a river system. We're hoping to find something. Wouldn't mind some ellies. Now, quite excitingly, that James found an acacia pied barbet for you. Now, I'm going to try find you what the acacia pied barbet spreads through the African bush. I've been looking up in all the trees. Now, they are mostly fruit eaters, and they have a great love for mistletoe. And the sticky seeds of the mistletoe get stuck to their feet, and they actually spread it to other trees, and then the mistletoe will start growing there. And of course, whoops, the daisy. I did not see that bump. That's a new one since I've been gone, and quite a sharp one as well.
Yeah.
Sure. Sebastian did not fall off, thankfully. And obviously I wasn't watching the road. I'm staring into the trees looking for mistletoe. So, and you find mistletoe in lots of different trees, in marullas, in combretums, even in knobthorns. And I mean, I saw that one at least. I can't believe I haven't spotted a single bit of mistletoe. There's a lot in some of the big marullas on quarantine. Especially now at this time of the year, while it's quite dry, you will notice the mistletoe quite easily, because it's one of the only green things in the marullas that haven't got leaves yet. There's not the best example of mistletoe, but directly under the grey lurry. Here we go, you can see there's mistletoe growing there. Not the best example, a bit of a small one, but you can see directly below the grey lurry there's a sort of bulge in the marula there. Now that's because mistletoe will force the trees to produce a growth hormone to send more nutrients to that area to supply them. So they are very much a parasitic plant and a favorite of the acacia pied barbet in terms of food. Now, we should start seeing their fruit in the next couple of weeks, maybe a month or so, and it's bright red, so very easy to spot. Now, as I was telling you that the fruit is very sticky and it sticks to the acacia pied barbet's feet, and that's their main form of dispersal and spreading to other areas. Now, because it's so sticky, in a lot of African cultures, historically, mistletoe was harvested for two different reasons. One, for fodder for their livestock, because it holds a lot of nutrients, because it's forcing the host tree to produce lots and send most of the nutrients to wherever they're growing. So it was cut out and used for fodder for cattle and goats and sheep and whatnot. Also to make bird lime. So because it's so sticky, it's got a very sticky latex, a milky latex in it. And you can actually boiled up the branches and stuff, and you reduce it down, and it leaves you with an incredibly sticky substance. And then that would be put somewhere, and then we got a nice little bird party here, and then some seeds and stuff would be spread to attract birds like francolin and guinea fowl. Just go forward a little bit. He flew off. And that was used to catch birds. There we go. And you see the little rattling testicular right on the edge there. And there's a, where's he gone? No, up in the back branch. There he is, hopping. There we go, a little rattling testicular. Oh, quick moving rattling testicular. Project Alpha was wondering, did I ever use mistletoe to catch birds when I was young? Nope, I did not. I had other means of catching birds when I was little. And you grew up on farms and in the bush. Oh, we've got some noisy birds now. The arrow-marked babblers is a nice one right here, Seb, on the left. Sitting nice and close. There we go. Giving its beak a clean. And you can see where it gets its name from those little white streaks down its front, as I said, to look like arrows. The arrow-marked babbler. Oh. Okay, well, I'm going to keep seeing what I can find and maybe doing a bit more birding. While we do that, let's send you across to Tristan with Tingana, who's about to leave Djuma.
Indeed, it is a last look because he's going to cross the boundary shortly. He's just walking behind us at the moment, kind of slowly heading across the fire break towards the boundary itself. I'm surprised that he's kind of moved the way he has. I suppose if he's on a little territorial patrol, this is the kind of ways that he's going to go. But let's just get onto the road and then we'll get one last view of him going over the road and into Biffle's Hook. Now, it seems like our squeak that was on Jigger has gone away, but for some reason, David and I are very perplexed by this. It seems as though maybe we've had aliens abduct us at some point, because our aerial at our back end is kind of got a steel bar with these bolts that run through it, and that's what holds everything together, and the bolts have bent somehow and the whole kind of aerial is skew, which is quite odd. So anyway, I don't know how it's happened. We didn't really catch on any branches, so strange. Something must have happened in the kind of time that we were following him, but I don't recall. Yeah, I don't recall exactly. It is awkward, Em. I just don't recall seeing any sign of that happening. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go past Tingana quickly, and we're just going to park on the road in front of him, and then hopefully you should be able to kind of see him crossing quite nicely. That's the idea anyway. He should come out towards the road. I don't want to kind of block his path. That's why I've tried to get a little bit further ahead of him. Then where he's going to cross, he's just watching at the moment and kind of taking it very easy. So I'll just park off right about here. That should give David a very nice view. How's that, David? Marvellous. Yes, we like marvellous. So he's going to come onto the road now. There he is. Hello, Tingy. Are you going to go into Biffle's Hook, or are you going to walk on the boundary? Which one are you going to do? No, he's going to go on the boundary straight towards us and then over the road. How's that? Just posing right in front of us. Hello, boy. That's so epic. Being spoilt as he kind of walks right alongside us. He is looking seriously good, though. How cool was that? That was absolutely awesome. He went exactly where I hoped he was going to walk, and we kind of left him quite a lot of gap on the road, and given he's so relaxed and knows his kind of place here and knows that he's the dominant male, he just kind of ambles right past us without us having to worry at all. Very, very nice. Now I wonder if he's going to go north or if he's just going to keep going down the boundary. Let's just turn around and see if we can kind of keep up with him. I think I've got a branch under the car as well at the moment. It's all kind of happening to poor Jigger this morning. Yes, definitely a branch that's underneath, but that will have to wait, because we are going to try and see if we can just follow Tingana down the boundary. I think he's going to go off into Biffle's Hook, though. Oh, I'm pretty 99% sure that's going to be the case, especially given that he is kind of come from the south and has been moving north pretty much the whole morning. That's kind of been what he's been doing. Oh, hello, big branch. No wonder we were making a bit of noise. I think we still have more of a branch underneath by the sounds of things. We just have to say hello to the people that are in the sighting with us. Yes, we still have a branch underneath somewhere that we're going to have to get rid of at some point. I just think we're still carrying it along. But Tingana is moving off into Buffelshoek, Hook, and so we're going to leave him there. We're not going to follow any further. We'll let the other guys carry on. We also don't want to disturb them with this horrible noise that is coming from the vehicle. Now, there he goes. That's the last view that we're going to have of him, I'm afraid. Very nice, though. Was that not epic? I mean, we had a great morning with the Duke this morning. Absolutely perfect. So that was really quite pleasant indeed. So he's going to disappear. Like I said, I'm going to let the other vehicles carry on and go. We obviously don't want to disturb them with the noise that Jig is making. We try to get that branch out of the kind of undercarriage before we go any further. He's kind of still moving off down the road. I don't know where he's heading to. There's a dam somewhere here that I know he sometimes gets seen at. Anyway, while we do that, let's send you across to James for a little update.
Well, the update is that we had a Nyala. Unfortunately, you didn't want to see it because you had Tingana. So the Nyala has gone, and now we have nothing else to show you except the burgeoning heat of this October day. I will tell you that Hosana has been seen way to the south of where we are now, in fact a very long way from where he was yesterday, to the junction of Baronites Road and Zoe's Road, for those of you who have the map open, and for those of you who don't, you can actually go to the Google map of Djuma. All the roads are named, and so you can find out basically exactly where we are. So Hosana is around. He's a very long way from where we are, though. We're heading towards the sounded like a really loud hornbill. I don't think it was, though. It's one of those calls that you know, but it was actually most likely an alarmed go-away bird. Alright, so we're going towards the Gallagher Pan. We'll just see as the heat builds if there isn't something there that might be having a drink. We're not far from there now. There's a lovely humid feel to the air that's starting to feel like summer as opposed to hot spring. And it's going to bring all sorts of lovely greenery and insect out of the ground where it's been hiding. We've heard a few cicadas already, but now the cicadas are going to dig themselves out of their year-long slumbers. The butterflies are going to lay their eggs. The weavers are going to weave their nests. And all around life will begin anew. And of course, this time of year, while it is the favourite of just about everybody, it wouldn't be anything like the same if it weren't for the dormant period that is the winter. Quite enjoyed this year's winter, I must say. I found it, well, it was relieving after the heat of the summer, but I think for the first time in my 41 odd years of existence, this was my 41st winter here on planet Earth, I think I appreciated it for the very first time. I came to embrace not so much the cold, but the dormancy and the change, because I knew what it meant for the coming spring. Amazing that it took me 41 years to come to that, but, you know, eventually, better late than never, as they say. I've always just disliked winter. I suppose it's very different from living in the northern hemisphere where you have to be inside the whole time. Alright, we're going to sneak up to the pan. Let's go to Brent, who is on the move. I don't know what that means.
Well, we're on the move to the report of Hosana. We weren't too far away. It'd be nice to catch up with the little chief who gave me the slip yesterday. Okay, should be around here somewhere. Let us have a look. So this is the area he was reported in. Now, which way has he gone? Oh, there are some impala here. I wonder if he's on the stalk. Let's see. I think he should be around here somewhere. At the Balanites Junction. We are at the Balanites Junction now. Yeah. I'm not seeing anything. Balanites Junction, Zoe. So I'm just going to see if I can hear another car. Which way has he gone? Can't see any tracks either. Zoe's Road, north of the Balanites. Oh, that way. Ah! Well, we've had a little bit of rain, which means some of the more interesting amphibious creatures might be out and about. So let's go see what James has found.
We got to the pan, and there are no antelope or anything like that, but there is a frog, or a toad. I don't know which it is, but it's mid-metamorphosis. I think it's a frog. Can you see that? It's still got a tail. And so it's not quite a frog yet, and it's certainly not a tadpole anymore. And so what will be happening now is that its lungs will be developing. They are born with gills, of course, as tadpoles, and now its lungs will be developing. They'll probably be pretty much fully developed by now, and that tail will slowly disappear. Now, I wonder if we can't identify it from the spots on the back leg. It sort of looks toady to me. Much like with the flowers, I tend to forget what these things look like over the course of the winter season. Now, let me just quickly tell it where I am. So this very clever app will quickly separate out any species that aren't here. Now, it's not a bushveld rain frog, because they are born as froglets as opposed to tadpoles. It's got the legs of a toad, I think, those spotted legs, but I don't think that's what it is. It could be an ornate frog. An ornate frog, they've got spots on the back legs like that. Could be a sand frog, actually. Oh, yes, there's one swimming there. Project Alpha, it does exactly. It looks like an eastern olive toad. The thing is that an eastern olive toad is a big toad. And, I mean, this one that's swimming towards us here looks a bit younger than that one. But I just struggle to see this thing getting to the size of an eastern olive toad. But the markings are exactly correct. You're right. Well, let me go to the account of the eastern olive toad there, Project Alpha, and let's see. The difference between a toad and a frog, Patricia, difficult to describe, but basically the toads just belong to one or two genera, not genuses, and they've got a couple of glands and things that the frogs don't have, but they are frogs. So I'm looking at the account of the eastern olive toad, and let me find the tadpole. Okay, up to 36 millimeters. Now you see that thing there that you're looking at is probably about I'd say between 15 and 20 millimeters long, and it's not a tadpole anymore. Metamorphosis complete after 61 to 91 days. I just think it's too small, but I could be wrong. Anyway, still very interesting nevertheless. This other one likes you. Sen's always coming towards you. You see that? Right here. Coming out of the water there. And James Richards saying that Brent saw one of these the other day as well and also thought it was a toad. I mean, it looks like a toad. The only issue is that, you know, the tadpole of the toad, 36 millimeters is 3.5 centimeters, which is more than an inch. That thing's about an inch long, and it's not a tadpole anymore. I mean, it's almost a frog or toad. Unless it's a pygmy toad, but I mean, they're not common here. Not impossible. I'm going to have one more look. In the meantime, Leo Smith has managed to catch up with his lady and Hosanna.
Yes, we indeed have caught up with the little chief. Isn't he a good-looking boy? Where were you hiding yesterday for Safari Lives, mister? It was very rude of you to just disappear. You can see a lot of biting flies around his ears, those little stable flies. Must be so infuriating. Vicious, vicious little bloodsuckers, the stable fly. And they even occasionally bother us human beings, but not nearly as much as they bother the big cats and other animals out here. Tina says, hello, handsome boy. Indeed, the handsome Hosanna. One of our favorites, that's for sure. Always wonderful to spend time with him. Now, I'm pretty sure he was being quite naughty today and was following Hukamuri around, because I think Hukamuri was one of the leopards sawing this morning. Let's be careful, boy. Hukamuri's a boxer, and he certainly has that, looks like a boxer, doesn't he? Gives the impression of being in many a battle. There we go. What? Dirty feet or tired kitty? Fern is wondering, do those flies hurt when they bite? I would imagine so, Fern. Probably more irritation than pain. There we go. You can actually see them sitting on his ears, and it's one of their favorite spots to sort of feed from, is the ears of the big cats. And the older the big cats get, you can actually see the damage that the flies have done over the years. But the Nkuhumas gave us the slip this morning, but it is lovely to be able to finish with our little chief. And I think for those of you who keep a close eye on the dam cam, I think he might be heading back towards that area during the day today. So be sure to keep a close lookout. But while Hasana has decided to take a cat nap, we are going to head back for breakfast. But remember to join us in a few short hours for the sunset safari. And there has been a time change, remember. It'll be half an hour earlier. And also we will be having a rehearsal this evening just to keep you in the loop.